Man, you know you are old when your idea of a Friday night is, well, maybe I'll do a short podcast. Or maybe I'll watch a short podcast. Or maybe I'll watch a long form. Yes, that's where we're at, people. Such is life. Anyway, welcome here. Another Friday night. We're still testing out the new software, Restream.io. Hopefully got some of the bugs worked out from the mics and everything. So that was a bit of a hiccup, but I think I got that figured out. So we're gonna run probably a shorter show, maybe 30 minutes. Depends on if anyone else jumps in here. But I'm recording this just because I want to make sure the connections to Facebook and to YouTube are working out fine. As a matter of fact, I suppose I should go on to YouTube right now. So let's do that. And go to YouTube. I'll make sure that it doesn't play. Wouldn't that be something if I got a copyright strike against myself from myself? I mean, like, seriously, it's YouTube. I mean, they can do stupid things like that. I suppose I should be careful because I'm going to say that and then ban me for saying that they're doing good things. But you get my point. All right, let's do this here. Let's see. There. All right, let's mute the sound though. All right, anyhow, guys, before we get started on anything, do me a solid favor here as we get started with the show. Make sure to like, subscribe, check everything out that we got. We have our social media links and everything in the description for this episode. If you guys could do that, that would do me a huge solid, and I do appreciate that. And yeah, all right, I'm gonna have to turn this off because it's a bit of a. Anyway, we got the live call number here. I'm going to make sure we put that up there. And then, of course, our website is thecaramelconservative.com. Check that out. I'll be putting new content up there very soon. The articles are what you want to watch out for. Also, if you want to check out the past podcasts, all that's going to be there. And as I said before, we're going to start transitioning more into these live video podcasts, doing that, and then repurposing the audio into the Caramel Conservative Show. We'll be uploading it that way. I just want to experiment with this for a time and just kind of get into that. So, with that being said, we're going to try out a new feature here. Is it share screen? Add source, no share screen. Let's get into the news because, man, there's things going on. And we know about all the dark, dank, and terrible things. We know Biden, a president here. I'm sorry, a resident. The P is silent like Seki. But we know we got him running around, going to Kiev, going to Ukraine, and of course, where is he in East Palestine? That's the question now, isn't it? Where is he? You got Pete Buttigieg, who actually made an appearance out there, but refuses to answer any questions from the press. And then, of course, you got his press secretary who says, I don't want to answer any questions on camera. What kind of bizarre world do we live in when we got that? But we know all about that. And of course, the story will continue to develop and we'll see what happened. But I did see an article, not an article, a video just not too long ago. There was a metal processing plant that had exploded. It just 70 miles south of Cleveland, I think it was. What is it with all these plants? Whether they're metal, meat, you got train derailment season going on. It just seems very, it's too much to be a coincidence. And I think that's the bigger problem I think a lot of us have. Because the idea that this is just simply a coincidence just doesn't seem to resonate, just doesn't seem to make sense. And I guess we're trying to figure out what that is. All right. I think we're gonna have we're gonna get a guest on here. Hey, it's gonna be live. It's gonna be good. Let me do that real quick. All right. Again, remember, we're experimenting with this software. We're trying to make sure everything's running good. We're going to be sharing some news sources here pretty soon. And we'll have this guest coming in here momentarily. Now let's share this one. We're going to start off with this story. This story kind of really entertains me. And it entertained me simply for the fact that, I don't know, every generation seems to think that they created something new. Every generation to think that they got something special. And this here, in multiple publications, initially was on from Business Insider. But the story here, college students are mixing drinks in plastic gallon jugs and they're calling them Borgs, right? And of course, you got this whole thing where apparently Borg stands for blackout rage drunk or gallon. And you're talking 1 gallon. And essentially what it is half of it booze, half of it water. You can change the ratios accordingly. And then, of course, some people, what they'll do is they'll put in electrolytes and, some other stuff in there. Now, proponents of these Borgs, what they're saying is that, well, it's not a bad thing because, I control the drink. Nobody's mixing it for me. And nobody's slipping anything in there. And I think what's kind of funny to me about it, and Orlando, I did send you that link. Let me know if you got that. Oh, no. Okay, I would see him in the green room over here. But what's funny to me about that, you act like this is something new. How many of you, especially Gen X and boomers, Gen X and boomers, especially boomers did some crazy, seriously. Like I thought we were kind of wild because you'd like have this big old bathtub. You remember that? You go to a house party and it was like this big old bathtub and just filled with every kind of liquor under the sun. I mean, everything. Things that didn't even make sense. Like you were mixing like triple sec with Cointreau. Like, no, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but kind of not, Oh, no, it's Grand Marnier. Doesn't matter. You'd mix that with, Midori and rum and like 7 different types of vodka. And everybody just dipping their cup in, having a grand old time. You know, boomers were even like more exciting because it was just like purely mystery in the bottle, passing it around. But here's something for you Gen Xers. Y'all, and people are talking about, these plastic gallon jugs and getting loaded off that. Who remembers fish bowls? Oh, yeah. I remember fish bowls. I remember very well. I mean, like, literally, it was a fish bowl, plastic in nature, but it was kind of like the size you would have a goldfish in. So I don't know the actual volume of that, but what I do know is you drink one of those, the average person, oh man, you're gonna be lit. And if you ever seen people walking around with a fishbowl, like nobody's putting it down, nobody's setting it off to the side. But here's the concern, and we'll get into this here. Let's do this. Let's see who's blowing me up here. All right, we're not worrying about that. Anyway, a college hangover hack. I love it how people think you're going to have a hack. How many times do people think, I got a hangover hack? No, trust me, you don't. But apparently, this is viral trend on TikTok, and people are lauding it for reducing harm. Not to be confused with the pseudo species of cyborgs in the Star Trek. The Blackout Rage Gallon is a personal 1 gallon plastic container filled with part water, part hard liquor, and flavored with a drink enhancer of choice. Recipes for a 50-50 ratio using vodka are popular on TikTok. So you got these TikTokers, but here's the thing, and this is where I think the critics of these people that are running around, with these gallon jugs, is simply the idea that you can overdrink. You know, Here in Wisconsin, obviously, we're a culture where we do like to drink. And depending on your poll, depending on who you're talking to, we're oftentimes referred to as the drunkest state in the nation. what is it, the top 10 drunkest cities in the nation. I think we typically tend to get like what, 7 to 9 on any given year. But the question is, even when you're doing a 50-50 ratio, because if you think about it, when you're getting a typical drink, right? Just a standard drink, say about this size, you're generally going to have two 1 ounce pours. So 2 ounces of a hard liquor in here for the most part. Obviously, some other cocktails, they're going to be a lot different. It might be 1 part, say, Jack Daniels, 1 part sweet and sour, 1 part whatever cordial you're adding to it to make a particular drink. But when you're talking 50-50, that is pretty strong anybody's standard. So, for example, when I'm at home, and that's typically where I would drink, I drink an 80-20 ratio. I drink an 80 because usually after 2, 3 drinks, I'm good. I ain't 25 anymore. I'm not trying to compete with anybody either. So when you're out in public like that, well, what are some of the pitfalls of just any kind of drinking in general? You've got, bad decision making. You've got poor reaction skills, a possibility of getting pulled over and a DUI. And then, of course, it can lead to habitual habits. So, I think when critics address it, it's an excellent point. As we'll talk about here, we have a doctor here, Conliglio. I'm mispronouncing his name, an emergency medicine physician at Tufts Medical Center, believes the very nature of Borg is uncontrolled drinking, according to 25 News. If you take a fifth of vodka, 750 milliliters, which is about 16 shots, and pour that into half a gallon with some electrolytes, it doesn't absolve the fact that you're still drinking 16 shots of vodka. Oh, and by the way, people putting these electrolytes into these drinks, I kind of think that's hilarious because what what they're trying to get themselves to believe, and everybody else for that matter, is that by getting these electrolytes, you're going to maintain hydration because alcohol, by its very nature, is a diuretic. You will be dehydrated. Think about the last time you enjoyed a couple cocktails or some wine or whatever. You find yourself at a certain point having to use the restroom quite often. And, obviously, when you drink, you must void. Well, the problem with that is that you're putting in these electrolytes, but it's not nearly enough. And again, we're working off the 50% ratio of alcohol. The amount of electrolytes you need to pour into that would probably be more than you'd be able to handle right then and there, making it a negative effect because you will still end up urinating. You will still be dehydrated. Now, whether or not hangover, I guess that differs from person to person. But the article here continues. Nevertheless, staying hydrated through a night of drinking is helpful, according to Samantha Casti, a plant focused nutrition and wellness expert and the co author of Sugar Shock. By the way, if you're plant focused nutrition, it's debatable whether you're a wellness expert, but we'll go there another day. Clearly, the best thing you can do to avoid a hangover is to drink responsibly in the first place. If alcohol drinkers want something besides water, Cassidy suggests going for electrolytes with a low to no added sugar or coconut water, as mixing sugar with alcohol can worsen the effects of a hangover. And that's why I can't mess with rum that much. It'll get you. That's talk about that blood sugar. Also up here, binge drinking is defined as a pattern of drinking alcohol that brings your blood alcohol concentrate to 0.08% or higher legal limit, according to the Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. It's one of the most common yet deadly types of excessive alcohol use, according to the CDC. Frequently, advocates with problems such as unintentional injuries that result in death, violence, sexually transmitted disease. Studies from the American Addiction Center show that college students between 18 and 24 are more likely to binge than their non-college peers. That's because, well, that 18 to 24 group, especially when they go into college, they're kind of unleashed for the first time. A lot of irresponsibility going on. The same source stated that every year, 696,000 college students become victims of assault of another student who's been drinking. So when you choose between a keg, a punch bowl, a board, stay safe. Staying safe needs to be top of mind. Can't argue with that. That is facts. Let's see if we got Orlando in here. Yes, we do. Fantastic. Just wait for him to get back and we'll get him on here. We'll bring him on. Let's see. We're going to see. Yep. Oh, see, I got it. Figuring it out. What's up, Stephanie? How you doing tonight? Got the metal cup of justice right here, along with the dragon chalice. Nothing in the chalice, of course. All right, we got Orlando Owens coming on here in a minute. Orlando Owens, former candidate for treasurer here in the state of Wisconsin. Now he's kind of doing his own thing. He's got a election coming up here with the Milwaukee County Republican Party. They're going to be voting on their chair tomorrow night, I believe that is. And there's 4 candidates I'm aware of that are joining in. So without further ado, let's welcome my brother here, Orlando Owens, right about now. What's good, brother? How you doing?
I'm well, my friend. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you well. I hear you well. Am I coming across okay with you?
It's a little choppy sometime, but it's going good so
Mm-hmm.
far right now.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I was messing around with some settings because I noticed that with the last episode and then with the last podcast I did. So I'm working on that, trying to get it straight.
Gotcha.
So,
Hey, Stephanie, I see you.
yeah, we got Stephanie here in the chat room. Love to see that. So you guys got your caucus tomorrow in Milwaukee County.
We
It's
do.
caucus
We
season.
do. It is tomorrow. It is caucus season. So go out and, vote and give me liberty or.
So you're running for chair and you got 3 other opponents coming up in here. Let's break it down first,
Okay.
because I'm something I'm still considering here as we have our caucus on Sunday. I'm still debating whether I want to do it or not, if it's worth my time. What motivated you to want to do this here? Milwaukee County.
Wow. To be totally transparent, man, I am at a crossroads myself on, it wasn't something I wanted to necessarily do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a need for some new voices, new vision, new ideas. I'm already on the board, and so as you all know, I work for U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. Been with him now for almost 9 years, and we just got elected to another term. And actually, I could just kind of just do case management work for the senator and do field representative for the next 6 years and kind of just do my job. But I do sense a urgency and a call to do this. It does not come without a lot of weight, and I am concerned myself about the task itself. So
Right.
yeah, I'm a little concerned. I'm gonna, but that's what's driving me. That I see the need on how we have to win these elections, and if I could be useful in this capacity, I want to do that. I also know, if you may not know, but our chairman David Kars decided not to run, and
Right.
so I was like, okay, who's going to be the person that's going to lead Milwaukee County in a direction that we need to go with the ideas and creativity, communication, the ability to draw and to lead and to motivate. Who's going to be that person? And I've met with several of the candidates. I've talked to them. I think they're decent people for the most part. Um, and so I kicked around the idea, like, okay, I'm comfortable with what I see, and I just kept thinking that thing over. So you know what? I think being from the trail, right? And I think that's what one of the biggest experiences that I bring, this finishing a race for state treasurer, and I didn't get the numbers I wanted, but being
Right.
on that trail and the experience, it showed something that I think a lot of the other candidates just don't have in their repertoire, and that is
Mm-hmm.
that that statewide experience, and also having having touched the pulse of the people of Wisconsin and having that as not a staffer, which is cool, but as the actual candidate and having
Right.
that platform and seeing how well you actually connect with people. I'm the only candidate you all may remember that was got the endorsement of the state party and also the Patriot Party at the state convention, besides myself and U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. Uh,
Correct.
I think that speaks to something there, the ability to articulate a message that connects
Mhm.
with a lot of people.
Well, I find it interesting because Milwaukee County was been in the crosshairs for a lot of people over this past election cycle in 2022. Everything from various social media pundits, and of course from the people within Milwaukee itself. The Mark Bellings and the Jay Webbers of the world. And I think it's interesting because I don't know. I always look at Milwaukee as being as living it within its own bubble and not necessarily being able to acknowledge what happens outside the state and how that impacts it. And I think to your point, I think it's a very good idea that if you have to have your finger on the pulse of the people in the state as well, not just Milwaukee, because there is that symbiotic relationship between the two.
I agree. And, for me, and excuse me, I'm looking down, I'm trying to get you on my Facebook page so I can have it, broadcasting
It's all good,
simultaneously.
man.
So I'm just trying to do a couple things. Um, no, I think you are absolutely correct that having an understanding how we connect to the out, to the rest of the state, right? I'm not going to shine anybody on, um, running for office saying like, hey, we're going to win Milwaukee County, we're going to win the city of Milwaukee. That's not true. It's just
Hmm.
not. We're not there yet. But what I can say is this. Um, we need to add to the overall count in the statewide races, the national race for like the presidency or the governor, or in this past few days ago in a Supreme Court race. We need to be able
Correct.
to add to that overall vote count, and that's where I think that's where Milwaukee plays a role in the overall strategy. Milwaukee
Hmm.
County is the second largest county for Republican votes, right? So we have to do better than 30%. One of my flyers that I'll be passing out tomorrow talks about like moving the needle past 30, 32, 30. We got to get it up past that. We
Correct.
cannot expect the rest of the state to do their part or to go, and we still continue to have a lackluster performance.
Mhm. I keep hearing that being said that Milwaukee County has the second highest number of Republican voters. And I don't know, every time I hear that, I'm very doubtful of it, just simply for the fact that if that were the case, then why are we having more Republican, elected officials within Milwaukee County itself?
So that's
Now, granted, I understand more Democrats in there, but at the same point, it's like,
great, great.
I don't know.
There's a great question, and the answer, is quite. You kind of touched on it already. We have the biggest, the second biggest, county, but that number pales in comparison to how densely populated the Democrat stronghold in Milwaukee County is in Milwaukee. That
Yeah,
lets you know just how can two things be true at the same time. Well, Milwaukee County is that example, right? And then
right.
from there, it also speaks to when we look at the county, a lot of the Republicans were spread out all over the county. So we're not
Mhm.
concentrated in one part of the county that our voting block would be more powerful. We're spread out. And one of the things I want to focus on of the next chair, if the people elect me tomorrow, is the ability to go out and connect with Oak Creek, Franklin, Cudahy, um, West Bend. We have to, I'm not West Bend, I'm sorry, West Milwaukee,
Well,
West
yep.
Allis. We have to be able to connect with these different parts of the county that I think are ripe for more conservative voters. The problem is, I don't think we have a structural problem inside the Republican Party. Can we do better of getting someone who's a member to get on a committee to get them active? We can do that better. That's an administrative fix, I think. I don't think the county,
Mhm.
Milwaukee County, needs an administrator. We need a visionary. And these are two different
Yeah.
people with two different skill sets. I think what we have is a totally our messaging and our brand is what is not selling. What we're offering people,
Right.
our proposition of freedom is not being bought by the people, and we're not communicating in a way how freedom is so necessary. I can tell you
Mhm.
that we don't do a good enough job of expressing how important their vote is. We had, this number we're tossing around, and I'm going to get this number even more hardcore. But we talk around, we say there's close to 100,000 hunters who didn't vote, right?
Yeah.
We look at the number of hunting licenses compared to the number of people who voted, and you can run those numbers and see if this hunting license actually meets a voter roll, right? But what we don't take in consideration, if you look at close to 100,000 hunters, more than likely a lot of these hunters are married. So if he's
Right.
not voting, she's not probably voting either. And if they're married, then it may be are even children. So now that number even gets even higher. So
Right.
so now we're close to what, 200,000?
Yeah, you can almost double that.
So we have to do a better job here in the county, and I think there are several people, several areas that we have to look at. I was listening to Jessica McBride today, and Jim over there in Wisconsin right now, and we kind of have the same idea. Like, where do we find the votes for this new Supreme Court or the Supreme Court race,
Mhm.
right? And I've said this, and I think Jim talked about it today. Like, we need to turn toward our base. The religious base. Me being a minister, that's an area in which I can speak to very easily, the faith community. We need to talk to our hunters, our sportsmen. You may not know it, but I'm a good old boy by nature. So I
Right.
have no problem connecting. Our 2A crowd, I'm a proud 2Aer, uh, proud 2Aer. And so a member of the NRA. So we have to talk to, I believe, conservative voters already. They may not be Republican, but they're conservative. And I think sometimes we have a disconnect between what is the Republican and what is the conservative. And we must make, in my humble opinion, we must make policy make sense to the people versus trying to push a politician. Quite honestly, we know as conservatives, we don't do groupthink well. So you can't tell us who to vote for. We are very independent. We don't like government. So as a result of that, we don't necessarily see the need to always be engaged in it. So now we're going down the list of things of why conservatives may not be voting. And let's also be very clear:
Mm.
a lot of conservatives just don't like politicians.
Right. Well, the other thing too is, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, early voting, early voting, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I think the bigger problem is that if you have the same base of people and you focus on early voting, then all you're doing is displacing the voters that you currently have to shift them around. What are you doing to grow that base? What are you doing to get people that typically would vote Republican when and if they do vote? Because I know a lot of people that they don't always vote,
Yeah.
and how do you bring that in? And I think to your point earlier, that's a messaging issue. I want to get to the chat real quick here because Matt has a couple good statements here, and I want to start with this one and get your thoughts. He says here, I think we're at a critical time where we need absolute unity in the state
Conservative.
cons- conservatives. Man, it's a little blurry here. I got to get these glasses up in here with this critical April election. And this election scares the hell out of me. I don't know how we beat the vagina hats and the crazy cat lady libs. That's a great point. It's a great question because, well, we know they're really good at ballot harvesting.
Mhm.
And we know that their game is on point and they deal with a lot of low information people. It's harder, I think, for people that are right of center, being that many people right of center, sparsely, spread out. What are your thoughts on this idea of unity, which I think we should have had during this gubernatorial race because really it was ours to lose?
So, unity is very important. There are some things going on right now in my race that, definitely, is the ugly side of politics that kind of turn
Mhm.
people off to it, and unity is important. But let me, I'm gonna be very, very critical here and very transparent. We need to deal with the unity issue like now. Unfortunately, the unity question falls on the heels of an election. And so we never get to talk about what is the disunity. We talk about unity, but let's address the disunity. What is it? What are the things that are causing the disunity? And I think some of the things I mentioned earlier, which is we don't trust politicians because so many of them lie. We don't believe our vote counts. We don't think our vote would change anything. And I don't really believe that,
Hmm.
the vote is really being impactful. Now, how do you bring unity in that? You must again point people toward the ideas and the proposition of freedom, right? Because freedom is not reserved to a politician. Freedom is to the people. And so we must reiterate
Correct.
the ideas of freedom to individuals. I mean, I'm sorry, the idea of freedom, in your own individual, and not saying having it locked up into a politician who is flawed. I think so often politicians get into the area of trying to speak, let's be honest here, speak to please people instead of just speaking
Yeah.
honesty. If you can't do something, just say that. We are more concerned with trying to be PC and win support in
Hmm.
this instead of just being honest. People, I think, especially conservatives, we can deal with not agreeing. That's okay. You don't have to agree with me 100%. If you agree with me 100%, I think at some point you're just telling me something I want to hear. So I think there's a
Yeah.
distrust there. That's how we bring the unity must come because I'm hopeful that we can bring some unity for this election, and the unity may be around the issues that are at stake. But let
Hmm.
us be clear: we cannot continue to kick the can down the road about addressing these internal issues. It's like cutting your grass in front of your house, but the inside of the house is a garbage can. All we're doing right
Right.
now is cutting the grass on the outside. It looks good on the outside, but inside the house is not in order. And we have to get the house in order because we cannot keep cutting the grass. So, at what point do we actually have a honest dialogue with the patriot groups, with the county parties, with the non-affiliated conservatives who could be voting and not voting? When do we have that family meeting? And right now we're too busy. After this election we're preparing for the next election. So we never really have that moment like time out. Let's talk. Let's talk, and let's address why we're having this fraction in the family.
Well, I think part of the problem, though, is that even when they try to get people together, you have one group of people that are just so angry. Now, whether that anger is justified, and I think in some cases it is, other cases it's not, they're just not willing to listen unless it's 100% you're doing what we're telling you. That's a problem too. You can't go into any type of discussion in good faith unless you're willing to listen, hear the other person out, and get where they're coming from, and vice versa to try to make a hybrid of ideas. So I do think this idea of unity, and part of it, I think, is that when it comes to the fracturing, the schism that we have here in the Republican Party, that we've seen over this last year and a half, I think some of that was intentional. I think some of that, I think there were some people in there that were disruptors, and that was their goal. Now, it's you know, it's conjecture, and I will grant you that. I don't have any hard proof, but it just seems there was a lot more disruption this past year than in any election cycle before.
Again, I can't disagree with you, Ed, because I can't tell the motivations of individuals, but I can also respect frustration when you get to a point of an argument or a disagreement that you don't really want to concede on anything because you're fed up with the other side, and you basically are given an
Mhm.
ultimatum of I'm not compromising any point. We're done, and I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's a very volatile relationship, and if you want to bring a relationship together, to your point exactly, you got to have parties and individuals who are willing to come to the table. But also, you have to have a credible arbitrator, in my humble opinion. And that's where people like a Senator Ron Johnson comes from, or someone like me who works for a guy like Senator Johnson, who can be an arbitrator to say, listen, let's have a conversation and let's really air this grievances out completely. And let's at least put it on the table. And from there, let's work backwards and see where we disagree. But let's at least start in a place of agreement and build some trust there
Yeah.
because clearly trust has been broken.
Yeah, and that's kinda an interesting point you bring up. I'd love to see somebody just have everybody sit down and, like, "Listen, y'all gonna sit here, you got the hell up, and you're gonna listen to what we're telling you, and then I wanna hear what you have to say, because then I'm gonna sit down, and I'm gonna shut up, and then let's have an open dialogue." But I think that, I was at this, we had a statewide county chair meeting back in April, and all the chairs from all the counties and the vice chairs were invited to come to this, and it was up in, near the Stevens Point area. And it was interesting because Robin Voss, Paul Farrell, and David LeMahieu, they were all there answering questions, and it was just one big pounding on them. And it was like, guys, if you guys are coming at that like this, then how can you expect any type of dialogue? How can you expect to even come to understanding? Instead, it was just, you need to resign. And what? You're going to take over? Come on. The practicality in this, in the short-term demand did not measure up to what the long-term goal was. And it's always kind of blown my mind that people aren't willing to see that, okay, I disagree with you on, say, 20, 25% of the things, but I agree with you on almost everything else. Unless that 25 is just so incredibly important to them, because you do have those single issue people. Let's look at Matt's comment here. Interesting. How do you feel? I feel nothing. I feel nothing, Matt. I have no heart. Um, how do you feel when I inform you that the Racine County GOP has turned down 10 to 20 applicants and checks for membership, yet causing more division? It's like the GOP wants division, and that's a huge mistake. I can't really speak to that, as I've heard rumblings of that, but I don't know the whys and the wherefores and the here tos. And I know he had something here. My application check sat for 15 days in the P.O. box, and they just let it sit. And it was returned. This was also in addition to 10 to 20 others that were sent refusal letters to their application to join the GOP.
Wow.
How interesting. I would like to learn more.
I'm with you, Ed. I've heard some grumbling from a few different sources about some of these things. I can't really speak to it, and it's best that I don't, because I don't know all the ins and outs. But clearly,
Mhm.
again, this I think that is a clear example of just like a really breakdown in communication. Like, we can't have that. We have to find a way, if there is any way to salvage the relationship and create an environment that we can actually talk this thing out. Um,
Yep.
yeah, we have to do that. And again, this is that kind of that merry-go-round, and we should be able to talk and chew gum at the same time. I mean, walk and chew gum. I'm sorry, I can talk too, but walk and chew gum. We should be able to do both. And that we can sit down and have discussions about this, and it really comes down to having the right people in the room. And I can't speak directly to what's happening in Racine County. I
Mhm.
can. I'm more prepared to speak to some of the things we have in Milwaukee County, but I believe you have to have the right um, conversation. You have to
Yeah.
have we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and if that means we need to go and do a retreat for 3 days in Racine, and let people have their concerns kind of aired. Let the executive board have their concerns kind of aired. Then that's what we have to do. But we got to get the people to have some semblance of a dialogue and
Right.
try to figure out, can we work this out. So again, without putting, speaking as if I don't know what's going on in Racine. So I don't pretend to profess, but I just know relationships, and that sounds like that's a very volatile relationship there.
When I think that, there's been questions and people making, various accusations about the executive board over the GOP, at Racine GOP over this last year and a half. And I'm not saying one way or the other, because like I said, I personally do not know. I would like to learn more information. I've heard things from one side, but it doesn't necessarily mean that one side is right, one side's wrong. I've still yet to parse that information. But that being said, I think that there's many problems within the overall county party itself. All the county parties, with the exception of very few, because you do have a lot of county parties that seem to think that their position, the title, whatever it is, that somehow grants them lord-like authority over the members at large, the basic average member that's within those parties. I'll share, a story, and I've talked about this the other night. Here in my county party, Washera County, we got, and I'm supposedly a part of the executive board. I say supposedly because I'm the vice chair and I've been boxed out. Like I literally cannot get a member list. It took me months to get the county constitution, but yet we have a secretary that's just calling the shots arbitrarily, no vote, no meetings, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shocked that things like that are allowed to continue. And then, of course, you compare this with the accusations that, with Matt's talking about with the Racine County GOP and what we've seen over this last year. Then, of course, the issues going on in Milwaukee County. And I've heard things regarding David Karst as well. There's a huge problem with just the county structure as a whole. And maybe, the terms need to be shorter. Maybe they need to be more accountable to the people, that they represent, because what I'm seeing right now, it's a social club.
I don't. Again, I don't know if it's structure. I know that one of my opponents that is running for the county chair here in Milwaukee County, that's their things that we need structure, and I don't think structure is not why people not voting. What you're talking about, I think clearly is this is what I mean as far as my candidacy for the chair of Milwaukee County. What you're talking
Yeah.
about, these are structural internal issues, not voter turnout issues. We're
Hmm.
trying to get voter turnout. Now, can we do both? This is clearly an internal issue that with leadership. Is that me? I'm sorry, I didn't know. Was that me? You?
No, that's me.
Okay.
My
So
that's me. My watch is blowing up over here.
so yeah, that's definitely a leadership internal issue on how to deal. And I don't even know the structure, but how to deal with relationships. Right. That's what it's
Yeah.
about. And how things got this bad. At some point, how do you get out of a hole? Stop digging. So
Hmm.
at some point, we're gonna have to talk this thing out.
Well, and it needs to be sooner rather than later, because really we have our convention coming up here in a couple months in La Crosse, and then of course we've got the RNC National Convention coming to Milwaukee in 24, like literally just over a year from where we're at right now. And I think the last thing we want to do is look like a bunch of idiots, because I swear if we had something like, I'm surprised Milwaukee got picked at all, to be perfectly honest with you, considering all the upheaval and hate and discontent that has happened over the last year and a half. But what do we know? We just work here. Matt giving me that good compliment. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. Very much so. 79 pounds down. Can we hear something funny? I think me and one of my sons, we can start sharing pants now. Man, it's rough. I still have a hard time looking at myself in the mirror like, damn, that's you, son? Really? Good times. Good times. I love Matt being on the chat room, because Matt always throws out that good stuff here. He said if every voter can just find 2 to 3 friends that don't vote and motivate them to get to the polls, we can move mountains.
So I think the operative word there, again, I'm leaning back on why I'm running for the chair of Milwaukee County, is we have to have people who can motivate and move. You have to, be someone who
Hmm.
can speak, articulate, and bring a message that will move people to action. If you cannot, then that's not your call, right? Maybe you connect that person who's a 2 to 3 with an inspirational video of someone who gives an inspirational speech of why voting is so important. What do we have to lose? Maybe those videos are locally, created from the standpoint of, speaking about Act 10 and right to work and concealed carry and castle doctrine
Hmm.
and school choice. These are the things that are on the ballot, for the Supreme Court race. Having control of the maps, and having, someone talked about how if this judge does win, the liberal progressive way out there judge does win, there goes Brian Stiles. He's going to be redistricted out. There goes Derek
Right.
Gordon. He's going to be district out. And then we will start to lose a number of state Senate seats and state rep seats. That's why it's so important again, why this election tomorrow is so vitally important. I guess that's one of the reasons why things have gotten so heated down here for the chair seat, because we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different outcome. We must offer a
Mm.
different proposition of freedom. We must meet people where they are. We must do more listening than we do talking.
I want to get to this comment here. Again, Matt just blowing it up. He mentioned, we just want Robin to take his job seriously and be honest. Now, I'm not going to get into the back and forth of this, but I think this is something that we can extrapolate to all the county chairs and the executive committees that are, especially in a place like Milwaukee or Dane County. You look at the numbers through Dane County. I mean, it was like an absolute blowout in Dane County. And we know it's a liberal haven, it's the Berkeley of the Midwest. But when we extrapolate this to county chairs, let's think about it like that. How can we get them to not only just listen to their members, but also to reach out to the community and grow their members so that way you can start getting people actually more involved?
Yeah, my one of the things that I talk about, I don't necessarily start off with growing membership, because I think membership will come if you give people a reason to join, a reason to vote, a reason to be motivated. I think when we focus on membership, we lose we kind of get sidetracked on why aren't people joining in the first place. But I get what you're saying, right? But I think before we can get membership, we got to get people excited and give them a reason to vote and a reason why to become a member. What are the benefits of being a member, or why should I be a member? We have to make the Republican Party, again, at this point, first things first, I'm happy if they vote for a conservative. I'll come
Yeah.
back later and see, can I get you to become a member? But because I believe that if we deliver on conservative ideas and conservative policies, conservative solutions, membership is only a step or door knock away of saying, you know what, you guys have been doing some good work. Give me an application. But if we don't produce the product, you can't expect people to join.
Well, we've talked about this at great length, and this is something conservatives do very, very poorly. We don't create culture, and I'm a big proponent of culture. I'm almost 50 here. I'll be 50 here in like a God, how long? A week and a half. God, I'm old. But
You just have done.
when I
You just have done.
just half done, just half done. But when we talk about culture as a whole, we're talking popular culture, we're talking about the things that are trending today, and I'm a big observer of these things. Um, even if my kids think I'm weird because I say things like sus and whatnot, but it's all good. My point simply is that we don't do anything to try to draw or even go to, and this is very important because you have talked about this ad nauseum, where we don't go to where the people are. We don't go, we just simply go to where our base is, and you're just feeding, you're preaching to the choir. You're not talking to the people that need to hear your message or even at least receptive to your message. And I think that's a problem there, because those people can be, if you can explain it to them right, tell them a story correctly. These are the people that are saying, you know what? I don't want government in my business. I want more of my own money. I'm tired of being taxed into oblivion. No, I'm not going to vote for you, Tony. Yeah, Tony, you're out.
We have
That's
to
what
be
should have happened this last year.
we have to meet people where they are. I think part of the issue, quite honestly, is that we don't know where the people are. So therefore we can't go there. But I think we found them on, if you look at my campaign page, I think we found where they are. I think we found that it's close to 100,000 hunters are not voting. Those same 100, we call them, you can call them sportsmen. Those are the same guys right
Yep.
now who are currently riding snowmobiles. Those will be the same guys when the weather breaks who'll be riding ATV. So until we connect with them, and let me also be very, very clear, since we like to talk about kind of identity politics, even amongst conservatives. So we got to get the
Correct.
black vote, we got to get the Hispanic vote. What about getting the white man vote? I'm just asking. I know that that's a big thing, is getting black people to vote and Hispanics to vote, but what about the white male? You know, that 150 hunters, right? Why can't we, connect and not have him to be as a had to make him be as part of the solution? Because right now, America pop culture, woke culture says he's a terrorist, and I don't necessarily
Right.
believe that. I don't just like I don't believe that every black person is a criminal. Just should I believe that every
Right.
white man is a terrorist? Like no. And so we got to be able to also, and that's what I believe that we have to be able to articulate to the guys in the back of the woods, guys who drive truck, guys who go to the snowmobile pool, the tractor pools. If we're not connecting with them, then we're not growing, because these are voters.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting that you bring that up because we've heard so much over these last, going on 2.5 years, about the white suburban women and how they broke for Biden, which I don't believe, but okay, I'm sure they have their metrics. But yeah, nobody's talking about the white suburban man, the white rural guy, the farmer out there. I mean, it's kind of funny because I know a lot of farmers personally, and I go to certain accounts and I go talk to them, and we're just kind of chopping it up. And it's funny because I listen to them and they talk their politics. They sound very conservative, but when you ask them who, how they vote Democrat because to them, in their minds, these are the JFK, dare I say, Bill Clinton Democrat, back when Democrats weren't quite so psychotic, and I'm really fascinated with that. Let's see here. Matt blowing it up again. Well, then, when Brian Style and others send me letters for donation, I have a notion to say no because the local GOP chapter doesn't want me. I would be interested, and especially with something like that, to see what the opinion is of your local lawmakers, your local congressmen, your state assemblymen, your state senators. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of them would be like, well, I really don't want to get involved like that. All right, I get it. It's so funny because I brought it up a couple times to some folks, and they're like, "Well, that person's a really nice person." It's like, damn it, I'm not concerned whether they're nice or not. I'm concerned whether they're effective.
Sure. Again, I think this is where we are. And Milwaukee County, I'm going back to that race. Milwaukee County is pivotal.
Yes.
And tomorrow cannot be a popularity contest. Tomorrow
Oh
can't
God,
be
no.
a beauty contest. Tomorrow has to be a question of vision and purpose. Who has the vision to go get those guys in the back of the woods? Who can talk to the guy who gets his hands dirty every single day? Who can go out and talk to the guy, all the union guys in West Allis and West Milwaukee? Who can go to the shooting range and go hunting? Go out to the ice to the ice to go fishing. We need that type of person to do that. That's what's left in the county of Milwaukee.
Yep.
We've exhausted all the votes coming out of the North Shore. We've exhausted the votes all up and down the North Shore, Shorewood, Whitefish Bay. It's not much more will come out of that. But what we can go to that we haven't done any much work at all, Oak Creek, Cudahy, Franklin, St.
Here,
Francis.
let me blow your mind on something here. So this past weekend, we went down there. I had a lot of extended family in come visit my parents, and we were staying at a hotel in Oak Creek. And I decided I was going to take the long way to my parents' house. I wasn't going to get on the highway because honestly, I was sick of driving on the highway. It's like 2.5, 3 hour drive. It's ridiculous. But, I do it because, it's my family. I took Howell on down to get to the Caledonia area, and I was blown away by how much stuff was in Oak Creek.
Mhm.
Now, mind you, I haven't been in Oak Creek in like almost 10
Yeah,
years.
man. Oak Creek popping. Yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
popping down there.
But it tells me something, though. It tells me that at this point, you always had to have a little bit of money to live in Oak Creek, but now it looks like you need a lot of money to live in Oak Creek. And it also tells me it's like, okay, where are people? Matt said it's all grown up. Greenfield is the same way too. That one just always blows me away. And I'm going down the highway and I'm seeing like, the 84 Center Shopping Plaza and all this other mess. And I'm like, God, y'all just replaced Southridge Mall by being an outdoor mall.
Yeah,
All right. I guess that works.
there's development going on all down there, man. So yeah, we definitely have to, we gotta push these numbers up, man. And I don't make any claims that I have it all figured out. I would say this, Ed, you have some great questioners that are in your chat room. Great.
I know.
I see Tracy popped in there for a minute.
Oh, I haven't got to him. Yo, there we go. There we go.
The
Yeah.
group calls themselves the Patriots. Oh, okay.
And that was part of the group we were talking about earlier, where it's like that group that call themselves Patriots are so thirsty for Voss's blood, they refuse to be adults. And this is where, if you let your anger so blind you, how can you communicate in a way that's in good faith? And I think that's part of the problem. Because again, we saw it in Sheboygan, we saw it during the state convention, and even in my county party, and I think to a certain degree within the Milwaukee County, there are people that are just so blinded by their what they think it should be, that it does cause a fracturing within the party. And then you have people like, yeah, screw it, I'm going home. Again, we saw that with the Michaels camp that was so hell-bent on destroying anything that was clayfish, that it got a bunch of people like, yeah, I'm going to vote for you, but I'm not going to advocate for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a danger all the county parties could potentially run into.
Yeah. So, I think primaries are healthy, but they have to be at certain points. You got to be able to pull back. Someone said, a commentator said, part of the issue sometimes is that when you have so many people who are so closely aligned in their positions that there's not really much sunlight between them. You start to go pick at things that create a bigger amongst the candidates, and then we go too far. You start picking to somebody's son or somebody's uncle or someone who had a divorce or someone who struggled at one time with a life struggle.
Correct.
So it goes beyond just the surface level of like, who is the person you think is the right person. I think also this is really big. Ed, you and I spoke about this. We as a conservative movement have to make a decision, and it may be different from state, I guess, region to region, or we follow the old adage of the most electable or the one who's most conservative, right? Because some say the most conservative isn't the most electable. Some say the most electable isn't the most conservative. So we have to have this is part of that internal conversation that we're not having. Like, we have to be clear what it is. We have to be clear that which one do we want? Do we want the most conservative, or do we want the one who's most electable? Do we and then I'm okay with whatever we decide as a movement what we want. Does that change from region to region, right? Do you have someone who runs, let's say, in a moderate district or a moderate county? Do you want the most conservative, or do you want the most, the one who's most electable? I remember you and I talked about this too. We talked about Dale Schultz back in the day. He was always the one senator that everybody was like, "Oh, Dale Schultz is going to sell us out." I think he was back there with Scott Walker, and they would always talk about the Schultz vote. He can go either way. I wouldn't say the problem, but the condition that Dale Schultz was in, he lived in a swing district. So that meant he couldn't get so far conservative on certain issues or all the time. He'll lose the middle, and he couldn't get too far to the left because he'll lose the middle conservative. So you have to, and that's a nuance that if you're not a political person, you might say, why is this guy selling us out? Why is he not voting? And I'll take it to a national level. Is
Go for it.
the Republican in Arizona the same Republican that's in Georgia?
Oh, what about Joe Manchin,
Is the Democrat in West Virginia?
West
Same,
Virginia?
the
Yeah,
same.
because honestly, and it's funny because on one hand, Republicans could certainly demonize him. Oh, he went in with just lockstep with the Republicans. But on the other hand, him, Christian Cinema, saved the filibuster. And then, of course, conservative. Oh man, he's a good man. Well, which one is it? I mean, here's a guy who's actually sticking to something, and you don't have to agree with him, but if they're standing up for something that's extremely important because they understand the principle that you don't want to just ram through things, well, you got to give the man credit where credit's due.
Well, again, I think we have to have an honest assessment with ourselves on what do we want. Again, does it go region to region, state to state, race by race, or what litmus test do we bring out? The one who's most conservative or the one who is the most electable? I would venture to say that if you live in a red district, you probably want the most conservative because the liberal has no chance of winning. So you probably want to get the most conservative person you can. Now, if you live in a
Because that's safe as can be.
because it's able to
Right.
be like you people that live in maybe a moderate district or middle of the road district, you probably won't be able to get you a really really conservative person. You have to get someone maybe closer to the center because a really really conservative person in a 50-50 or a 48 in a swing, you probably can't get better than a Dale Schultz. So we have to be clear, and I don't always think people understand the nuances of that, right? That you can't in certain areas in certain parts of the state, you're not going to get somebody who's let's say a Jock and Andre Jock, who's
Right.
but someone who's down. Again, these are you are reflective of where you live.
hmm And I think it's interesting when you bring that up because when you're in that swing area, it's a fine line. And then, of course, when you extrapolate that on a state level, oh man, good luck trying to balance that out. I mean, yes, I know you have so many assembly seats that are in a senatorial district, and balancing that's difficult. But as a statewide candidate, man, Stephanie brings up a very good point here. We need to all look at the bigger picture and what's at stake. I think we can win in April if we are unified in our efforts to reach those voters who align with our way of thinking with a message of what is truly at stake. I understand that is let me go back here. That's very oversimplified answer. I think that's a great point because somebody posted the numbers of the vote from Tuesday, and no matter how you slice this, Janet, and I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name. I just learned how to pronounce Jim Pavarchek's name,
Performance.
so I don't have to worry. Pavarchek. So
I
now
don't
we
know.
don't have to worry about Jim beating me up next time he sees me. Janet, I can't pronounce her last name. We know she's the loony left, but her numbers still dwarf, even with the 70,000 that the other liberal got,
Yeah,
still dwarfed all the conservatives together.
that's true. And
So this is where. Go ahead, please.
I think to Stephanie's point is the bigger point again why I think I would be the best fit for the chair of Milwaukee County is that we need, and it's going back to the unity question, it's going back to the value proposition of what's at stake and talking to people who are most aligned with us. So Jim Paravetric and also Jessica McBride, they think that this April election is not about necessarily getting the moderates. It's really about getting the base because they feel like the left is going to just play the abortion, position, and that's who they're playing to. They're not playing to the moderates, and Republicans probably need to play to. And I think in this election, we should have gone toward the base a long time ago. So I'm with Stephanie. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what we've been harping on, going to where people are. Again, let me also be very, very clear. I support minority engagement. I do, but I'm also very realistic on having to overcome just the the indoctrination of a Marxist community on how racist white people are, how every cop is out to get them, and how, America is the worst country ever. I would rather, and spend time doing a little bit of that, but a lot more time talking to the boys in Oak Creek and Franklin. And somebody
Yeah.
said also Greenfield and Greendale, I guess. Talking to some of those boys who, they are already conservative. They just don't like what we're offering, what we're selling. And that's where I think I come into play on who can articulate that message the best, that connects with them the best. And I think part of the things that we're kind of tapping onto right now is starting that conversation, not selling them on a politician, but telling them about policy. Make the policy make sense to the people. I think Stephanie kind of
Yeah.
said it. She's talking about what's at stake. You got to tell people what's at stake. You got to make that make sense. Why is Act 10 important to people? Why is concealed carry? Jim talked about make this race for the Supreme Court about 2A, all the gun rights. Turn back to
Hmm.
the faith, the church people. Turn back to your
Yep.
base GOP. Turn back to your base conservatives and get that population going, because trying to fight with this moderate, you got a whole base of people who already think like you. But if you just motivate them with the right message and maybe the right messenger, you might get them come on out.
I do think that there is some validity in the idea that we need to get some of those moderates, because it's like, okay, let's say that the odds of me winning, let's say you and I were in a race. Now, granted, you, me, this is hypothetical. So in reality, we ain't running anywhere. We're not running to dinner. We're not running from the cops. We're not running for dogs. We're not doing any of that. But in this hypothetical, Orlando Owens, Ed Delgado, we're going to go into a race. We're running, right? And let's say that you had a 60% chance of winning. I got a 40% chance. Just because you got a 60% chance of winning doesn't mean you're not going to train. It just simply means that you're going to step up, continue your training, because you're going to be a lot more comfortable if you had a 65% chance of winning, a 75% chance of winning. And I think the idea of resting our laurels, to me, that's garbage. And again, that's the problem I also encounter with my county party. But let me get to something here. And that's Milwaukee County Chair. I think this is a great question. Once again, just throwing it up. By the way, shout out to Brian Shimming, radio
Brian's
host and the chairman
what's going on?
of
What's
the
going
Wisconsin
on, Mr.
Republican
Chairman?
Party.
What's going
Good to
on,
see
Mr.
you here,
Chairman?
sir.
I'm hoping that I'll be chairman with you tomorrow, Mr. Chairman. What's going? Hats off, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for hanging out with us, old lowly
I tell you,
guys.
hanging out on social media. That's I tell you, man. I love Brian. Brian is phenomenal. Definitely. We did some work before in the past. A couple episodes. Me, him, Steph, me, and hoping to do more here in the future. But I want to get to Matt's question here, because I think this is a great one. And I'm not going to read it. I'm going to let everybody read it. But there are a lot of people that says my vote doesn't matter. The Dems cheat. Dominion voting machines. Why bother to vote? I guess in a sales way, we will call all those objections. As county chairman, how would you deal with, especially my vote doesn't matter
Sure.
or the Dems cheat?
So I think for my vote doesn't matter. I think that's where the inspirational connection has to happen, the motivation. I think we also have to be clear on why that's there, because of broken relationships in the past, failed politicians who don't listen to the people. That's why one of my points is less talking, more listening. But when they say my vote doesn't matter, that's where you get that from, because they don't see anything changing that we're doing, that connects to them. If we don't make, again, if we don't make policy make sense to people versus trying to push a politician on the people, then we will never get the people. I don't care what politician give people, if the policy is not making sense, then you'll never get the people, because the policy is what moves people, not the politician. The politician has the ability to articulate a message, and if they can connect the message to the policy, that moves people. That's why this chairman, if I'm elected tomorrow, I'll wear many hats. I'll wear my cowboy hat tomorrow. I'll wear my 2A hat today. I'll wear my America's Great tomorrow, the next day, because you must go to a lot of different populations and make the policy make sense. Now, you got to also understand what policy is important to the people. This is where the listening comes in. The old folks used to say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen twice as much as you talk. So this is why you have to go out now and listen to those populations of people. The snowmobile builder, he's going to tell you what his issues are. The hunter's going to tell you what his issues are if you go listen. Now, once you listen to what their concerns are, you find the policy that makes sense to them. Now, once you find a policy that makes sense to them, now their vote counts. Someone once told me, an old pastor told me this one time, you show me a person's checkbook and where they spend their money, and that's going to tell you what's important to them. That's how you make their vote count. Make their vote count tied to their money. Make the vote count tied to their lifestyle and their livelihood. Make the policy make sense. If you make the policy make sense, then you have the person. But stop trying to push a person on us versus the policy. That was one of the things that Trump did well. Trump may not have been the best vehicle, but he had the right message that connected to the people. Because the message was right, the people were able to overlook some of Trump's downfalls, some of his missteps. They could overlook that because the message resonated and connected to them.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because let's take a look at Trump 15, Trump 16, and I penned an article. I wrote it for Right Talk Wisconsin when it was functioning back in the day, and I thought Trump was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the reason I did was because, to me, he was the bull in the china shop that needed to kind of shake things up, just go in there and tear up shop, and a wake-up call. When he won and he got the nod and everything, to me, it was kind of like, oh, God, this is like McCain. We're screwed. But you know what? We got Mike Pence. So you know what? If he screws up, at least we got Mike Pence. Mike Pence, a solid conservative. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for that one, by the way. But Trump pleasantly surprised us. Classic New York City liberal who governed as a conservative. It's funny. A classic New York City liberal is now considered to be a conservative. Something I pointed out in the past is, the shifting of the Overton window that continues to move further and further to the left. But it's an interesting observation, because when you start talking to the people that you need to reach out to, let's use a current example. Joe Biden goes to Ukraine and pledges what, $500 million? And yet we have everything going on in Ohio with the train derailment, and these people whose property values have gone down to zero, who are going to be completely underwater for the rest of their life, the financial, the economic, the health problems they're going to encounter. I mean, just absolutely disgusting. And you can't get the president there. And the only reason you get Pete Buttigieg there is because President Trump comes there and starts taking care of people. Water, McDonald's, all, whatever it is. At least he's doing something. I'll take that in a second. Because he's actually trying to affect something positive. And I think for a lot of the county parties, we need to see more of things like that. I'm not saying that they need to put themselves at peril and go into the disaster zones or anything like that, but start being there for the people, reach out to them. And this is where you're going to start, bringing people in. Because otherwise you're relying on the mainstream media and culture to, well, you're already behind the 8 ball. So you're kind of screwed that way.
You remember that?
Hey, we got Christine in here too.
What's going on, Christine? Hope to see you tomorrow, Christine. Hope to get your support, Christine. Need to support you and your husband, Christine.
They are phenomenal people.
I remember there was a uprising politician, a great leader, great orator, in my humble opinion, pretty cool guy. He had a slogan on one of his campaigns that was "People over party," and I think that's what we have to be. You have to inspire the people, man, with a vision and something greater than themselves. that is connected, but is unique to them. We have to have that. If you do not have that inspirational leader, you we must move people. This is what is at stake. People are not moved, and I think Tracy said people were sitting on their duffs on the couch. We need to move them from the couch, but in our current capacity, we're not connecting with them. We're not inspiring them. We're not giving them a vision
Mhm.
on why you have to, on how great America still is, how unique this wonderful thing we call the USA. It is still okay to say USA. It is still the greatest country. It's not perfect, but it's the greatest country ever. Our rights are inalienable from God. We still must have someone who can preach the ideas of freedom.
Let me ask you this here. And I've asked several people this during the course of Wisconsin conservative conversations. People get busy. And I like using the Minecraft analogy, video game analogies, because, well, I'm a gamer. Don't game as much as I would like, but, it's either make money or play video games, and one pays the bills, the other doesn't. Um, but in gaming, there are these things called NPCs, non-playable characters. So in Minecraft, which my son is ridiculously good at, your character might go up to a merchant, and that merchant is going to buy and trade with you. That's all it will ever do. You do not fear the merchant. The merchant will never attack you. However, if let's say a creeper or some other thing comes out and attacks you, the merchant will not help you. It'll say, "Do you want to buy, sell, or trade?" That's all it does. It is only programmed to do one thing, and that is it. In the course of when you look at the average person, and I'm not saying this to be mean, to belittle their NPCs, they wake up, they go to work, they come home, spend a little bit of time with the family, sit down and eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, rinse and repeat. There's very little variation in their day. They really don't tune into the news, anything like that. Tracy's talking about, people need to get off their backsides and go out and vote. Well, they rarely will do that, or maybe they only do it during presidential elections. At one point, that was me. How do you reach out to the NPC? How do you reach out to the individual that is so focused on their, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, by the way. If your focus is on taking care of you and yours, you're right here, this is your circle, I get it. How do you reach those people as a county chair?
Again, you have to know where they are. So one of the things that I look at is this. One of the pieces that I'm looking at, you must go where the people are, because people again are are creatures of habits. You see where they're spending their money, then you know what they do. One of the things we use
Mhm.
here in our state is called sidekick. So I've done some research. Again, this is why I think it's important that you give me a real strong consideration to be your chairperson. So here in Wisconsin, we use a data system, a platform called Sidekick, which is downloaded primarily from information from the RNC, but it's voter data. It's really driven by
Yeah.
voter data, right? I think that's okay information. But I would rather have a platform that gives me consumer information. If you give me consumer information, I know where you spend your money and how you spend your money.
Mhm.
Now I know what drives you and what triggers you. If I know what drives you, what triggers you, again, in that, like that bubble, you say, I go to work, take care of my family, and I go skiing. I take care of my family, I
Correct.
go hunting. I must know what you do when you're not with your family. If I know what you do when you're with or without your family, then I know how to appeal to you. At least I know where to meet you.
Right.
I know where to find you. And once I find you, I'm just gonna come listen. I'm not gonna go to the hunter, retreat and talk about critical race theory. That's not gonna move that guy. That's not moving him. What moves him is anything dealing with 2A. I'm not going to talk about
Right.
anything other than 2A. I'm not going to talk about abortion rights or traditional marriage rights, CRT, school choice. Not talking to him nothing about any of those things. That guy is moved. When you look at his buying habits, this guy buys a gun every 2 years. He's at the gun range. He's got 4 hunting permits. He's on the water. He's a fish. I'm going to where he is.
He said he said 4 hunting permits.
So
It reminds me of a friend of mine. It reminds me of a friend of mine. He owns a bar. He does all the hunting he does here in Wisconsin. And the joke we have back and forth, and we make a lot of off-color jokes, but one of his hobbies is he goes out to the Dakotas and he does the big game hunting. Like he goes after bear, moose, any of the crazy stuff like that. And it's just kind of trippy because it's like, bro, there's not enough stuff here in Wisconsin for you. But again, you said something that just kind of really struck me as like gold. Consumer habits. Like really at the end of the day, forget all the other stuff. Find the consumer habits. Why do you think places like Target, Walmart, the Roundy's corporations, why are they so incredibly successful? Because they look and focus on consumer habits,
So if I'm looking,
not just
if I'm looking for a new,
go ahead.
if I'm looking for a new vendor, and this is my business marketing background, I'm looking for a vendor who gives me consumer data. That's what I want because I know where to
Yep.
find you. Because what's in the voter data, what's in Sidekick primarily, nothing against it. They just get the data that what we load into it. That only gives me voting habits. The people that we're trying to find, they don't vote like that, so they won't show up like that. But if I know again, if you see him only voting once every blue moon, you still don't know where he is and what he is. You still need to know the consumer data. We need to know he bought a Chevy pickup truck 2 years ago. It was red and it had big
Right.
tires. Like this boy like to go mudding. I'm gonna go to the mud pit and meet him. What I found when I
Hmm.
was on that trail going statewide, my friend, I found pockets of people who did certain things. And I can tell you in those pockets, none of us was there as conservatives or Republicans.
No, you're there as enthusiasts of whatever it is you were doing. Those enthusiasts being, of course, enthusiasts for the tractor pulls or the mudding or whatever else. The oily pig wrestlers, whatever. You're there for that and to connect on that level. And it's something you and I have talked about this. If you can connect with somebody on an emotional level on the onset, be it positive or negative, this gives you the ability to tell them a story. And if you can tell them a story, then you can, of course, insert facts. Once you insert facts and tell the story, of course, it helps if you're entertaining when you do the story, you can close it out. Now, does that mean you seal the deal? Not necessarily. Because again, the emotional hook on the onset means to also match it on the end. People remember how you make them feel. And if at the end of the day, you can make them feel more positive, they're going to remember that and they're going to remember you.
I think this. So we're getting into business terms, and I think this is what we need more of in the Republican movement.
Mhm.
People who do more sales and marketing, right? I think we as a conservative movement, we've been selling something that no one's buying because we don't know we hadn't marketed to people. Marketing is different than sales.
Correct.
Sales makes closes the deal, but marketing identifies who are trying to make the sale to. You can't sell something to somebody you hadn't found. Marketing is the
Well,
listening is the listening part. Marketing is the data part. The sale is to open your mouth and here goes the pitch. But I gotta find you first, and that's marketing.
what I think is interesting because and I'm not disagreeing with you. I think with marketing, it's let's take all that data and then let's try to make information out of it. Because what is information but data? Whereas sales is building rapport, building those relationships so you can close the deal. Does that make sense?
It does. I think we're saying the same thing. In the end,
Yeah.
what we're looking at is trying to find what I think Stephanie is speaking to it as well. We got to find issues that what stop talking at people and listen to people because they're gonna tell you what's important to
Hmm.
them. And
Yep.
I think that's what it is. All right, Mr. Chairman, have a good night. Hats off. Um, I think that's what we have to be. We have to be more in that lane, and you need to have someone who, once they find that person, can bring home that crescendo of freedom. You need somebody who can say, "I feel like running up that wall." Whatever he just said, I'm with that. That's the experience. Hey, let me
Hmm.
tell you something, man. and I may say this tomorrow in my speech that we only get 2 minutes, 3 minutes tomorrow. But I met a
Okay.
conservative woman in one of the most unlikely places today in Wauwatosa and gave me a discount on my flyer because she said, I read your flyer and I love what you're saying on your flyer. We're conservatives.
That's that's some I'm trying to keep this PG-13.
But
You know,
I say it to say that the resident
that's big brain energy.
what
Big brain
what I'm
energy.
saying is that the message of freedom is still out there. While we may
Yes, it
feel like
is.
giving up, the message and the remnants of freedom is still there in the people. We must connect with the people. We got to find the people. They're ready to hear a message of freedom. They were ready to hear a message of America is still number one. That it's still okay to say USA. It is still to say, hey, we're the home of the brave, the land of the free.
What I think is really important, by the way, and let me give a shout out to I see David King up in here. How you doing, sir? Good to see you tonight. I'll give you a call tomorrow for sure, sir. But I think it's very important that we look at that. You said something earlier, and it also falls in line with what you're talking about now about the economics. And I think that's one of the most important things because if you talk to somebody's checkbook, this becomes extremely important because I think when an individual knows they can keep more of what they've earned versus being taxed to death, you're taxed on your income, you're taxed on how you spend, you're taxed on your investments, you're taxed on, pretty much everything. By the way, side note, apparently Bernie Sanders and a couple other people are trying to look at taxing robots. The ones that are going to be running at Amazon and stuff like that. Like I
Oh,
can't make this
Bernie.
stuff up. There's an old adage, by the way. If it moves, tax it. If it's planted down, tax it. Apparently, if it's a cybernetic organism, tax that too.
Oh,
But what
Bernie.
do I know? Let me give a shout out to real quick here, Kimberly Lynn. I love this woman. I've never met this woman in my life, but I love this woman. I've never met her, but she's very active on my social media. I look forward to meeting her because really, I think she's just a phenomenal person, and she seems to be a very, very, very positive person. We need more of that in this world. But let's go back to something very pertinent here, because as we are entering March, which means we are just a month and a half away from the Supreme Court race. Oh, Kim's got some love for you here too.
Love you too, King.
That's what's up. That's what's up. If you're elected chair, how do we advocate? How do we push for Dan Kelly to get back his seat as a Supreme Court justice here within the state of Wisconsin? Shout out Joe Lozano, Repo Man in the house. Jared, I see you in here, brother. Good to see you.
So you said, how do we get
How do we advocate for him? How do we push him across that line?
Dan Kelly?
Dan Kelly.
Um, I think one of the big things what we have to do, man. Again, this is nothing. This is going to be uh, rinse, wash, and repeat. We have to give the proposition of what Dan Kelly represents and not Dan Kelly.
Mm.
We have to put on that everybody's talking about what is on the chopping block if we don't get Dan Kelly, in there. Dan Kelly cannot be the seller. He can't be. I mean, let me say he can't be the main piece. He's the willful vessel, but the people have to push him. And the reason why we're going to push him is because Dan Kelly will defend the ideas of freedom. Dan Kelly is going to stand up for the Constitution. Dan Kelly is going to say
Yeah.
that concealed carry is still legal. He's going to say that school choice is still a thing to have. He's going to say that the district maps are fine. So we have to not so much push Dan Kelly, but push the things Dan Kelly will protect and push the things that are important to the people. And again, we have to make those things important to the people. We got to make certain that people understand that, if school choice, in your county, you don't have a school choice vendor, then why are we talking about school choice to you? but everybody in your county is 100.
Right.
We need to be talking about Dan Kelly's going to protect your 2A rights.
That's an excellent point because here where I live, school choice is kind of like crazy because, okay, so I have an elementary school here. The next elementary school over is like 15 miles east and west. That's not really an option, whereas in Milwaukee, for example, the next elementary school might be like, I don't know, 2 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And don't even get me started on high schools because like you got one high school and then the other one's like half a county away. But to your point, you start talking 2A around here. Oh, that's a whole nother thing right there. Whole nother thing.
They'll talk all day, and that's how you get Dan Kelly in with the people. We must find issues that are germane and prevalent and important to the people, county by county, region by region, whatever the case may be. And we need to focus there and stay there. We need to turn back to our conservative roots: freedom, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. My man, I think he sent you the press release from the 5 writers. I put your name on the press release team. He talks about the liberty and the pursuit of happiness and liberty and freedom. We need to have that going. That's how we connect with the people that support
Yes.
Dan Kelly. Again, it cannot be Dan Kelly. It has to be the ideas of the Constitution, which we all love and want to protect. So you must make a proposition, a value proposition to the people. Is the Constitution still worth fighting for? Is your gun rights and your freedoms still worth protecting? So you must make a value proposition to the people. And if that is still yes, then it is on the voting chopping block that you must go and defend. If you do not go and defend it, then there's all likelihood it will be taken away from you like no other time before. We must make that make sense to people. Again, don't make Dan Kelly make sense. Make the policy make sense to the people. Like, what do you mean my 2A rights is really up for grabs? Well, you do know that
Right.
if he loses, the court swing, and she's already said that she don't like guns and she don't like the boundaries. So you have to, again, make it make sense. So why is boundaries important to me? Well, we lose so many. If they redo the lines, we're gonna lose Brian Styles. You'll lose your man up here, Van Orton. You'll lose a few of your Senate seats and a few reps. You start to
Yep.
lose control of the voting. That means your rights and your freedoms will start to be eroded. That's
Correct.
the question. Again, you must make a value proposition. And if you're a leader, I'm hoping that I can be a leader servant leader on tomorrow. Must be able to articulate and bring the gospel of freedom home to the people.
Correct. Real quick here, shout out to Adrian Melby. I see you in the chat room. Good to see you here.
Adrian.
It's been a minute since we've had a talk. As you can see, I'm about a third of the man I used to be, but that's a whole nother story. But is it a third or am I 2/3 of what I used to be? Yeah, whatever. Math has never been my strong suit. But no, I think you're absolutely right because these people that we elect to be into these offices, they are literally the vanguard of our liberties, the people, the interpreters of our Constitution. And of course, that's one of the most fundamental differences of the Constitution between a leftist and somebody on the right. It is those on the left see it as a living, breathing organism, which is really freaking weird. And then of course, those on the right it is what it is. Now, with that being said, though, there's been some comparisons and some criticism that could be a potential Hagedorn. And I find a lot of the criticisms about Brian Hagedorn, Wisconsin Justice Hagedorn, to be very unfair. Because oftentimes, as conservatives, they say, we want a conservative justice who looks at it from a constitutional point of view, that the Constitution is as written, much like Antonin Scalia and Weinberg, Supreme Court's Chief Justice Weinberg, who also hails from Wisconsin. Whereas the leftists are very open about wanting a activist judge. When Hagedorn has made a number of decisions that upset a of justices. It was kind of funny because it was like, do you want somebody who does things according to the Constitution that will upset you from time to time, or do you want a conservative activist judge? And I guess the question is, how do you, as if you were to be elected as chairman, how do you deal with questions such as that?
I think again, great question. I think the way you just you know kind of explained it, like what do you want as a justice, right? I don't, in my humble opinion, this is just me speaking, as potentially the next chair of Milwaukee County. Um, I don't I don't want to really focus on Judge Hagedorn. I do understand that some don't like his approach to the bench. Maybe many don't like his approach to the bench and the application of law. And there's some conversations, quite honestly, Ed, that you as a leader you have to recognize there's no good way to get in or out of it. And I just don't know if the Hagedorn conversation is one, because what offsets the Hagedorn conversation is getting the Kelly in. Now, you said that some think that Kelly could be a Hagedorn. I don't know. I think Kelly has already kind of shown his wherewithal because he was already on the high court. So I don't know. But again, it's not so much for me about the Hagedorn piece versus, the Kelly piece, and trying to explain judicial accrement sometimes
Mhm.
is very difficult to do. And again, so I fall back to the ideas of who's going to protect the Constitution, who's going to limit government, and understand that government has a limitation, and the judicial branch is only one branch of the three branches. I want someone who understands that, and I think that's where I'm more comfortable in speaking to people about the judicial races of, like, who do you think would
Yeah,
be much more of a person that's going to defend the Constitution versus uh, trying to tweak the Constitution, who's not a legislator. So that's where I think
correct.
I'm more helpful in that discussion. Um, yeah, I think that's where I'm more comfortable in asking those questions of who do you think will
Mhm.
defend the Constitution as is written versus one who wants to tweak it.
And I think it is an unfair characterization to say that, Kelly can be like Hagedorn because, yes, he does have a track record. We know generally how he's going to rule to the extent he has that track record. So we can certainly work within that. You can make an educated guess based upon what you've seen in the past. So I do think that's unfair. Whereas, Justice Hagedorn, he didn't necessarily have that in the past, but he does now. I just think it's really unfair that, again, with regards to Hagedorn, the idea that somehow that him sticking to the Constitution makes him less of a conservative. I just think that's complete garbage. But, the comparisons have been made. And I think that's something where there will be questions that come out to the county chairs. There will be questions that come out to the executive board, and of course, when you reach out to people, those questions will certainly come up as well too.
My position would be I would have to point people back to uh, Supreme Court Justice Kelly's record, and I think that's where
Mhm.
I'm most comfortable because he points to his record. I think that's the best place to go to, and so that people can make their own evaluation. I think the question in this case is not so much if Kelly's going to be ahead of Dorn. The question is that Kelly's not Janet.
No. Well, and that's the other thing too. It's like he's going to be a Hagedorn. Yeah, but Hagedorn's not Janet.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's the bigger, more pressing issue. At this point, we only got one person on the ballot that's a conservative. So look at
right.
you know, yeah, I think that's where we need to be uh, in that comparison. At this point, we the primary is over, and we have this guy, and this
Hmm.
is the guy we have to kind of get there.
And speaking about the primary being over, I want to give a shout out to to Judge Darrow. Um, Definitely a solid conservative. And I've been critical of her to the extent that I do believe that were it not for the Brooks trial, a lot of people wouldn't have known her. I think there are definitely people who would have. That's why I think Eric Dooney endorsed her. When you're in the legal circles, you do know those people,
Mhm.
you know, but having looked into, Judge Darrow, uh, I found no issues. I was happy with either one of them. I did have my bias because I actually know Dan Kelly, but at the same point, we're running to preserve the state. Now, here's something interesting, and probably comment on this briefly so we can move on to more of the Milwaukee County chair. By the way, I said I was only going to do like a 30-minute show tonight. We're about an hour and 40. Thanks, Orlando.
Well, it's going good. You're getting back into the swing of things.
I had to really get this rain rust off this thing. But oh my God, where was I going with this? Having a good time doing this. I do appreciate
I think you're just about to wrap up the Supreme Court race.
Yeah, because we want to talk a little bit more on the county party. Clearly, I've heard a lot of things here and there with the rumblings going in Milwaukee. You got certain individuals that have been hypercritical of Milwaukee County, Mark Belling being one of them, Jay Weber to a certain extent, Paris Pacopis from News Undone, for sure. It's Tracy over here, 3-hour show. The hell's wrong with you, Tracy? You got better things to do on a Friday night, don't you? No, that's why we're all here. But Tracy's gonna punch me in the arm next time he sees me. But that being said, let's go focus back on Milwaukee County. A lot of people have been very hypercritical of Milwaukee County for a number of reasons. A lot of people were very hypercritical of David Kars, but David Kars clearly has been doing something right to an extent. That's why he's been voted in time and again. Real quick here, thank you very much, Adrian. I really appreciate that. She was commenting on my my form. Form. But obviously, David, it's now time for him to hang up the reins here in Milwaukee County, pass it along to someone else. And then, of course, he's going to be, I'm sure he'll be involved somewhere, somehow, some fashion. As a successor to David Kars, what are some of the things that you think are going to be most important? Not so much that you're looking to change, but that you're looking to build upon the work of a predecessor.
So, I hope David Carson's looking at this and someone gets back to him. But I one of the things that I would say, David Carson and I have always been honest with each other. We hadn't always seen eye to eye, and I think we both can respect that. And that's fair. I think one of the things that I would hope that I'll be able to build on his legacy is, if you don't know, David Carson's been a prolific fundraiser.
I just got to interrupt you real quick here. My boy over here from Ohio. Hey, Orlando, check it out. Ed has a neck. Hey, Joe, since this is on YouTube as well, I can't flip you off, but just know that I'm thinking it, okay? Just know. I'm sorry, Orlando. Go ahead.
No. I mean, one of the things that I definitely want to see David Carr stay on as the immediate last chair, which is actually a position, phenomenal fundraiser. And he has been phenomenal in that, raising money. That is something that I can only hope to imitate. Hope that he stays around for those tutorials and those meetings of those donors, and that's something that I definitely want to build upon. I don't know if I will ever match that, but yeah, he's a tremendous fundraiser. Tremendous.
Mm-hmm. So how would you build upon that and then elevate the county? And I say elevate the county. So let's go work with the number 30%, right? And in my weight loss journey, on my carnivore way of doing this, I've looked at my weight loss progress as 1 pound at a time. How do we take a county like Milwaukee County and move it from 30%? Forget 35, forget 40. Because I've heard critics say, we need to get a 40%. And I'm like, bro, you need to shut up. You need to get to 31 first. How do you do that?
I think one of the things we have to look at, I think first we need to identify the current existing Republican voters we have that we know are Republican voters. And we get that information from what we use in Sidekick. These would be, hardcore, we think to the best of our ability, conservatives. We need to make certain we get them connected and consistently voting. And that again goes to message on why aren't they consistently voting? And I think once we get them consistently voting, you will see a tick up on the numbers. There's a reason why they're not consistently voting, and they're right there. These are identifiable voters. These are not the voters that I say we have to do some more research on to find. We already know who these voters are, and they're not voting. So I think we have to
Yeah.
figure out why they're not voting. The why and the listening piece in both population of known conservative GOP voters and the unknown conservative GOP voters, the why has to be the same, which is close your mouth and listen. And you're going to
Yeah.
hear a level of frustration from them. So that's how we get them back again by letting them know this, how we need to come together and have an overall strategy on how Milwaukee County plays in the overall scheme of the conservative movement in the state. If we're trying to tell them that we're trying to win Milwaukee County and win a automatic seat and win a county board seat, we're misleading the people because we won't deliver that. They need to know
Correct.
what their role is, and their role is we need your help every 2 to 4 years for these statewide races, and we need you to mount up and mobilize because the best we can offer Milwaukeeans and Milwaukee Countyans is this: a Republican governor and a Republican AG. If we can get them to move the needle in Milwaukee
Hmm.
County, then we can deliver statewide on those two things. And once you get that, now those two individuals can lean into Milwaukee County. They can lean into the city of Milwaukee and make those transformative changes that we want to see as conservatives that we cannot get from the current legislative powers and the executive powers in the county and the city. We'll never win, I know, well, never is a big word, highly unlikely
Yeah.
to win the county seat in Milwaukee since Scott Walker left. We definitely is even more highly unlikely to win the mayor's seat of Milwaukee. But can we possibly pick off a Hell's Corner mayor, a Cudahy?
And that's where it starts. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I want to get to this comment here. David King makes an excellent point here, especially as it relates to just Wisconsin politics, statewide politics. Most people have not even read the Wisconsin Constitution. So, how do they know if they are ruling according to the Constitution? And that's an excellent point because I think a lot of people haven't. You know, Everybody always, looks at these rulings that come down from the state Supreme Courts and they juxtapose it to the federal, Constitution, which they should. But a state constitution also is in line with the federal constitution, just the same.
So I think one of the ways you do that quite transparently is this is where you have your constitutional lawyers like Will and these other organizations that are law
Hmm.
agencies. You now deploy them locally and break down the dissent of the decision or the what's the other one the leading dissent or the prevailing dissent, whatever it is, and they need to be able
Yeah.
to break that down to locals so we understand what is a case study and the case law that the Supreme Court used. We do need to have, and I support my guy over there from Five Writers that I'm a part of, having constitutional classes to learn the Constitution. So you understand, at least on a very rudimentary level, very basic level, what the Constitution says. Let's have those classes in the counties. Let's bring those classes to our high schoolers, to our trade schoolers. That was one of the things also. How do we turn the outcome better? In Milwaukee County, we have probably 2 to 3 of the biggest tech school campuses in the state, but we are not there talking to young people. I said something
No.
earlier about talking to young people, how we need to do targeted tabling, meaning that when you go to a college campus or a trade
Yeah.
school, we need to be able to go to a particular discipline and set up camp outside of the discipline and not set up camp in the main common area in the cafeteria that everybody's watching
Where they're all going to protest you and everything.
and call you out and dox you. But if you're in your discipline, let's say at the engineering school, most engineering students know each other. They see them
Hmm.
almost every day. They're more comfortable in their own element. Meet again, same principle, same policy, meeting people where they are, Meet the engineering students where they are. Meet the math students where they are. Meet the business students where they are. Meet the medical students where
Correct.
they are.
Well, the common thread that I'm seeing here, and by the way, Stephanie, we're not doing a 3-hour show. I know Stephanie and Hilaria would love that, but we're not going to do it. The common thread I'm getting a lot from you is, and of course, I've known this for some time. Go to where they are. Don't rely on them to come to you,
Well,
because this isn't a hit. If you rely on people to come to you, then you're expecting them to have more effort than they may want to put forth. Then you're expecting them to care more than you. And if you believe that, those people are just going to slip through your fingers.
well,
The reality is, if you truly care, you go to them first,
well,
then they come.
I'll give you a few different examples. I go in what we're trying to do now. You can't use a field of dreams model. Build it and they will
Right.
come. You cannot do that because we're not building anything that they're coming to. So we can't use the build.
It's good for a movie.
It's good for a movie. We can't do the field of dreams model. We have to go after let's call it dating one-on-one, and I want you. We got to go be the pursuer.
Yes.
We got to go out and hunt and go find those freedom
Well,
lovers.
I think also too, you're using the dating analogy. You have to present yourself as somebody of value, and I'm sure people have seen individuals out there like Fresh and Fit, Tommy Sotomayor. You got Just Pearly Things out there. You got a lot of other people in the so-called manosphere where you talk about high value men, high value women. You have to present yourself of value to get people to come to you. And if you have nothing to offer them, if you're that 45 years old, you're still working at McDonald's and you're not a manager, they don't expect anything of value. However, if you're working at McDonald's but you own 3 of them, well, chances are you got the pick of the litter. Adrian, by the way, I love this comment right here. We need Orlando Owens. Need emphasis, capital letters.
Thank you,
Milwaukee
Adrian.
County Chairman.
I pray that tomorrow will be the day, Adrian. I'm hoping that I can give a compelling 3-minute speech that people will say, this is the guy who has the vision. This is the guy that has the strategy to go out and get it, who can go out and hunt. Now, I think there is something, to hunting and using bait stations. That's the build it and they will come approach. But I think we're not there yet. We're not at the build it, the field of dream approach. We're not there yet. We're on the let's go get it. Let's go get it. We're at that phase right now because we just have been derelict in our duty in trying to connect with people. We have neglected the conservative voter, and that's a problem. When you neglect people,
right,
people feel underappreciated and they don't feel value at all. This is a value proposition that we must offer to people again, and we have lost that value proposition with the ideals of freedom that have been unfortunately undermined, underappreciated, and just hadn't connected to people. We must change the value proposition again to say you are valuable, you are needed, and this is how you are valuable to the overall thing. Again, you have to remember now, if we're conservatives in the city or the county of Milwaukee, we're not winning any races. So we don't see victories locally. So how do you, again, get me energized if we're not seeing victories locally? You have to break it down and make it make sense to me to say, we're not going to win your automatic seat. We might be able to pick up one county supervisory seat. That's it. We may pick up some village board seats here and there, but let's be realistic to let the people know what's going on and how important our overall strategy and how we play in the overall vote count for the state. And then we must get a governor and an AG to deliver for Milwaukee County and Milwaukee. If you want them to come back, if we do our part, then they must also deliver. They must also come in and remove DHism. They must come in and change the policies of the county. You must come in and take over MPS. You must come in and safeguard the communities. We cannot rely on the local status quo to do it anymore. They must now come in and show why we voted for a Republican governor, why we voted for a Republican AG. Once they do that, they must deliver on that proposition, and they must deliver on that because, again, we have already been beat down as conservatives in the county of Milwaukee because we don't win races because there's not enough of
Correct.
us. We have to have some hope. If we are always losing, then you develop a culture of losing. You don't become better, and
Yeah.
that's what the voters of Milwaukee County is. We are tired of being losers. We've been beat down so long. We hadn't won anything. We ain't even won the governor seat. We hadn't won any statewide seats. We barely got Ron Johnson across the table, but Ron Johnson can't impact us locally. We have to win something to make me come back and do this again. If you don't do that, then you're just talking to me, man. And I'm tired of just talking to you. And I'm tired of feeling like I'm underappreciated. We must win locally. I'm sorry, win statewide and have a local impact. That's how you keep the momentum going. That's how you keep people engaged who are in districts and in parts of the state that we will never see a winner for the most part. Let me just say that as the mayor of the city of Milwaukee or county executive, we won't see that most likely ever unless something drastically changes after we do the work of having conservatives lean into the.
Right.
So that's where we are as far as voter apathy or voter not showing up. We've been losing, man. We just have not gave the proposition, the truth to the people. Like, we're not gonna win the county, y'all. We're not gonna win the city, but we can win the state and we can win the country.
Right. It is interesting. I was thinking about this motivational speaker. And I love motivational speakers. Les Brown, Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins. I love all those guys. And I love them because they give a lot of that motivational stuff. And the problem with motivation, though, is motivation is temporary. It gets you hyped up. It gets you there for the moment. And I think, when we have these conservative, rallies and these Lincoln Day dinners and everything else that comes about from it, you feel geeked up. You feel all motivated and hard charging at that time. The problem is Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a Russian immigrant who came to America and just ridiculously successful, hyper motivational type of dude. He was at an event and he told people, he told them straight up, and I'm not going to use the exact language he used, although I'm very good at it. He said 90% of you will be back here next year. And the reason why 90% of you will be back here is because 90% of you will leave this event. You'll be motivated, pumped, ready to go, and you'll do nothing with what you've been told here tonight. The other 10% of you won't be back here next year. You'll be at a whole new level. That year's time will transform your life because you took what you learned here, you put it into practical application, and then you just started going from there. And I think it's interesting because when we take a look at the rallies and everything, you and I, we've heard them. We've heard the cheers. We've heard the, people getting motivated and everything. But where was the turnout? You take a look at the numbers, from the November election. Where was the turnout?
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the problem. You were motivated when you went to the Lincoln Day dinner. You were motivated when you went to, whatever rally you went to on September 11th and, everything else that went along with that. But that motivation clearly didn't stick to November.
Sure.
That's the problem.
So we have to create that sustainable energy or that sustainable motivation, and we do that through small wins from your school board, from your county board, and I think we saw that when we saw
April 22. Yes.
when you saw the school boards flip because of all the things from COVID and all the moms were woken up and said, well, this is going on in the schools. So those wins yielded wins after wins. And now we've lost some of that momentum that must be created again because the crisis and the seriousness of the matter created this sense of urgency that moms and dads became very active in their local school boards and they flipped county boards. Now, how do you sustain it? Unfortunately, people are moved from almost on some levels from crisis to crisis. And unfortunately, we have a relentless challenger who does not
Mhm.
sleep and does not slumber. He is, and they are relentless. We must have
They
that.
sound like Terminators.
Yeah, we must have that
It,
same
rem- it,
determination.
re- well, that's the thing. They're so trained in this. It reminds me of if you remember the original Terminator movie when John Connor comes up to Sarah Connor and he's talking about trying to describe it to her, and she doesn't believe in time travel. She doesn't believe in a cybernetic organism. Well, oh yeah, Kyle Reese. John Connor was the kid, but Kyle Reese says to her, he's like, listen and understand. It does not sleep. It does not eat. It does not feel pity. It doesn't feel remorse, and it will stop at nothing to end your subscription to life. I can't say the actual word because I might get a strike on YouTube, but the point is the left operate that very same way. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They don't feel pity. They don't feel remorse. They will lie themselves into oblivion. You know, so we're fighting against that.
So I forget how the guy said, my man Lou over at the Five Riders, he gonna kick me in the head. But it's the infinite war, and then it's we go for the finite war or something like we do wars that have a clear
Mhm.
end. The left
Yes,
has no clear end, and so they continue on. You know, they run
I would agree with that.
they run with no end in sight. We run with like, okay, this is gonna come to an end, right? How much longer do we have to go?
Sh- We look at short term battles. We don't look at the war. By the way, good night, Stephanie. Good to see you here tonight.
Good
Thank
night,
you for
Steph.
joining in.
Good luck at your races. God bless you at your races. No luck. Bless you at your races. So
Hmm.
yeah, we have to continue, and that's why you must have you know generals who keep the troops motivated, and that's where I believe I play a very big role in the county. We need
Correct.
someone who keeps the fire going. It can never be dull. The embers of freedom must always burn. And when they get damp, and that's where we are right now in the county, they've gotten damp because we've not explained how to keep the fire going and what is the fire, why does the fire needs to be, why and how does the fire need to continue to burn? And that burning must come from, we must win statewide elections. We must win the national election because we won't win the elections here locally. And that's a hard thing for people to understand because the people who are blessed to live in outstate parts of the state, God bless you. When you see
Hmm.
somebody you want to win and win for your local alderman and your local chairperson of your school board, there's an end point for them and they can see the hard work pay off. We in the county, we don't see our hard work pay off. So therefore, it's hard to stay motivated. If you didn't see the pounds dropping off you, Ed, it is hard to stay motivated if you don't see any change. We in Milwaukee County,
It.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go. Finish up. I don't
we,
bring
we
up a
in
point
Morgan
here.
County have not seen the wins. And so as a result, we cannot keep the motivation.
Hmm. So shout out real quick, Bill over here, Bill Lefkowski. If I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, please don't hit me. And also Darling Wink here in the house. Good to see you here tonight. In my weight loss journey, one of the things a lot of people discourage you to do is don't look at the scale every day. I look at the scale every day, twice a day. I look at the morning weight
Okay.
because when you wake up in the morning, you weigh less than what you do in the evening. Now you weigh less because as you're sleeping, you're laying vertically, your body's metabolizing everything. And then, of course, when you're standing up, you're working out, you're doing whatever, doing your day to day business every day, your gravity takes its toll on your body. So it repositions things, which, of course, increases your weight plus whatever you consume. And then I measure that every single day because I don't get demotivated. Like if I pick up a pound, down a pound, it doesn't motivate me until I hit certain benchmarks. But the thing about how I do this is I look at victories as 1 pound at a time. The problem politically is that we look, we put in all this work, we don't see results right away, and then eventually people are like, well, F it. No, not F it. Just keep putting in the work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
My son and I have this thing. We created a holiday. We call it International Ass Kicking Day. And it's celebrated on all days ending in Y. The goal of International Ass Kicking Day is to be a better version of yourself than you were the day before. So let's say you had a rough day out there on the camping trail. Let's say you had a rough day just in general. Let's say you just had a rough day, period. You wake up tomorrow. That's a blessing in and of itself. So what did you learn from yesterday, from yesterday's mistakes? What did you learn that you can try to step up and make better the next day? Because right now I'm in the middle of a plateau. I've been 238 for about a week. That's down from 317. Like, I'm going to complain about that, but in reality, I want to see more progress. But the thing is that if you know your history, and I know my own, I plateau for a week, maybe a week and a half. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to see anywhere between a 3 to 5 pound drop. When it comes to, voting numbers, when it comes to, county parties, that's where we have to start looking at it in terms of, let's get away from this. We need to go from 30 to 40%. Let's look at it as, let's go from what can we do in this next year? Can we get 1%, 2%, 2 being on the high end? Because if we can't do that, then we have to reevaluate how we're doing this. Because again, we don't want these county parties just to be a social club. You want to be a social club, there's plenty of them out there. There are Masons, there are bridge clubs. Dear God, in Markestown, Wisconsin, I go see an account, and I love these women because you know what? They're over there playing some card game. I have no idea. I walk in every other Wednesday, and I'm like, ladies, how are you today? Old ladies, beautiful women. And they always see me, and they're just big old smiles, having a grand old time. That's not what we need to win and preserve the freedoms here of our state and our country. But in order to preserve those things, we need to start at the county level. So let me ask you this. Engage with people. How do you motivate the people that aren't, well, politically initiated, as you and I are, and all our listeners here?
Hi. Give me the question one more time, Ed. I'm sorry.
How do you engage with people that aren't, and I know it was a long segue to that because I'm like tying three things together into one. How do we engage with people that aren't politically initiated, such as you, our listeners here?
Sure.
Because a lot of the things that we talked about tonight, these are things that the politically initiated, they know about, they understand to varying degrees. But to those ladies that I'm talking about in Market Center playing bridge, they don't care.
I
They
mean,
just want to go to the next week's, bridge club or whatever game they're playing. Parcheesi. I like that word, by the way.
Parcheesi.
Parcheesi is really cool.
For cheesy.
Parcheesi.
So
Yeah.
I think for the, I guess for the politically uninitiated, I think you said,
Yes.
I think there's still let me, if I can make up a word, I think there's still,
Yeah, please do.
I think there's still a pursuit of liberty. And
Yeah.
let's not make uh, politics so daunting that we lose the basic pieces of politics. And these are the ideas and the proposition of freedom. We still must make things very basic on what we go to battle over: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit
Mhm.
of happiness. We have to make those things always the core. Shout out to the five writers. That is the core of what we do: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In order for you to pay Parcheesi, there's a commitment to freedom that must be had in order for you to have Parcheesi anytime you want to. And then again, how do you make the uninitiated initiated? You got to make it make sense to them. You have to break down where they spend their time. If they playing Parcheesi, there's something they're doing, these little old ladies, that makes sense for
Yeah.
them of you still got to figure out what they're buying and what they're selling or what's important to them. If their retirement is important, that's going to move them because that's what makes them the ability to go play Parcheesi. You still have to make things make sense, even to the politically initiated. You have to make policy
Yeah.
make sense. That is going back to my one of my very first points, and it's still the same. You must make this make sense to people, and you must figure out
Correct.
what are the motivating factors for people, or what's important to people. So that will bring them past the unaffiliated or
Initiated.
the uninitiated government person. But the ideas and the proposition of freedom, you must make them relevant to all people because we understand what freedoms are. We understand what
Right.
we understand what liberty is on a very basic level. You don't know what liberty is, you know what freedom is. You know what we clout freedom with rights. We say that a lot.
Hmm.
So let's talk in a way that makes people understand to break these things down on why you should vote. Again, let me also be
Correct.
clear again. This conversation, and this is why you must have a leader who's articulate enough and intelligent enough and understand enough about people. The reason why Milwaukee County barely gets over again, man, remember when we were at our height in the county, Scott Walker was the county executive. Scott Walker became
And he won with a landslide.
that was
I
local,
remember.
that was a local win. A local win. So we saw the fruits of our work. And not only did we see the
Yeah.
fruits of our work, we saw that how he could impact us locally. Now, since that is gone, what is the next best thing for us to have, which is a governor that can impact us
Hmm.
locally here? So we have to find again. You have to make this. You must make this quilt make sense. Like we are not going to
Yeah.
have a governor. I mean, we're not going to have a county executive. So therefore, that immediate gratification that we all have as humans, we won't have in the county. So when people say like, how do we move the needle in Milwaukee County, and why is it Milwaukee County? We don't see the wins that let's say Waukesha sees. Waukesha can see a
Hmm.
county board that's all conservative or a school board. They're seeing the wins. We don't see the wins. So if whoever's going to be the chair coming tomorrow, if they don't understand, like you must have such a dynamic personality and an infectious attitude that keep people mindset on the long go. Like you went,
Yep.
because we're not going to win anything in the immediate that impacts us here. We got to win the governor's seat, and that's now 4 years away. We got to win the president's. That's 2 years away. We have something right now though in the Supreme Court race that's worth fighting for.
Joe's got to head out here, but love this comment here. Got to go get some sleep. Take care. He's East Coast Standard Time. He's out in Ohio. Joe, bless you and your family. I hope
Ohio.
you guys are good. I hope you're safe. Hey, brother, I'm hoping to see you sometime this summer too, because I got family out there in the rain area. So yeah, we'll definitely connect and talk. So, but
I hope that makes sense, Ed, that having those small
it does.
victories, that's part of the thing I think we don't talk about with all the political analysis of Milwaukee County. I think we miss the fact that part of the issue why the voter apathy or the voter turnout is low because we don't get any wins, bro.
Hmm.
If you're always on a losing
Well, I think
team,
right. You don't ever want to be the jobber who's, in WWE. The jobber is someone who always, they go out, they wrestle in front of the fans, and they end up losing every time, time after time after time. You don't want to be that cat.
you don't want to
But
be what's the team with the Globetrotters, the Generals.
yeah, yeah.
You don't want to be them.
The Washington Generals,
You don't, you
you
know,
do not want to be them.
you don't want to be that.
You,
You don't want to be that all the time. And that's what we are in the county. Again, no one has given us a proposition and explained to us since Scott Walker, since even with Ron Johnson, who barely won. And we rock with Ron because they attack him so much, but we have to, we see what he's doing, but it always makes it doesn't make always the connection to us make sense. But we must win some things in order for us to have that momentum. You win, and that's how you build from a losing team. You get one win. That's enough to say if we won one game, then maybe we can win another. Right now in the county, we're not winning anything.
Let me correct Darlene something here. And I know, Darlene, you've been very involved, politically and everything else like that. But let me correct you on something here. Darlene says here, Scott Walker, a nonpartisan race. And Scott Walker ran for governor. He lost Milwaukee because he had an R after his name. Let's be perfectly honest here. And please don't BS me. Don't BS the best BSer in the game.
Okay.
Let me just be very clear with you on that, Darlene. Everybody knew Scott Walker was a Republican when he ran for the county executive. Everybody knew Scott Walker was a conservative. Just the same, everybody knew Sheriff David Clark was a Democrat. And even to this day, people laud him, love him. BS argument to say it was a nonpartisan race. No. And I'm not going to let you slide on this because here's the bottom line. On paper, it is a nonpartisan race, but I don't live on paper. I don't know about you. I don't live on paper. I live in the real world, and people know what they know. And everything that came up against Scott Walker, and I remember that because I hadn't left overseas yet. I remember all that going up against him, and he still came out and dominated. The demographics have changed considerably since the late 90s.
Yes,
And that's why you see a lot of the things that you have now.
someone said that you might have said this, Ed, as well too, about the demographic shift, that you had a lot of conservatives moving out.
Yes,
You're
during COVID.
COVID, you have people moving out of the state. You have to remember, like you said, the demographics during that time with Scott Walker, the retirements that had to hit the county when the county went basically
Mhm.
bankrupt, and those voters left. Who uh, you know, again, I'm with you, Ed. There's no hiding that you're a conservative because conservative is synonymous with Republican, right? There's very few
Correct.
people that can finesse. Sheriff Clark was a Democrat in Milwaukee County. He never ran as a Republican in Milwaukee County,
Nope.
or let's say he ran for sheriff as a conservative. Again, it's a nonpartisan race, but Sheriff Clark was billed to the people as a Democrat. Sheriff Clark
Mhm.
was walked around the county by Polly Williams, who's a Democrat, who led the discussion in the city of Milwaukee, in the
Facts.
county of Milwaukee, that Sheriff Clark is a black man who's a Democrat, and he won. He may have been a conservative Democrat, but he was a Democrat. And that's just the truth of the matter. If Sheriff Clark was walked around by the county by Scott Walker, Sheriff Clark probably wouldn't have won the sheriff, especially
100%.
when Walker was starting to lose that voting block. Uh, and so again, I go back and I harp on the idea, and this is something I may have to try my best to share tomorrow within 3 minutes, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but
Yep.
we need to see some wins, and I can't give you short-term wins in the county because we're not going to win any county board seats. We have one conservative county supervisor in Milwaukee County, and she barely wins. Patty Logic, I think her name is Patty Larson. She barely
Mhm.
wins. And we have no conservative on the city council. Bob Donovan was
On the Common Council. Right. He was it.
and that was it. And he, that district now is pretty much a liberal. I think a liberal progressive one. So
Well, and the other reason, and I think the only reason that he stuck around as long as it is because, again, we've talked about this at great length, is the power of incumbency.
and also Bob, that's when Milwaukee, the south side of Milwaukee, bled into the south side of the county. We also remembered we had residency requirements at some point, that the city of
Yeah.
Milwaukee police and the city workers had to live within a certain area. So those conservatives,
Well, within the city limits, but then also too, let's talk about Bob Donovan's district. Let's go back to that for 1 second. If you look at the Bayview area, completely regentrified.
Yeah.
completely regentrified. A shout out, Christopher Lawrence. What's going on, brother? Good to see you here tonight.
I think you said, Ed, or maybe someone else said this, the rise of the tech trades are also a problem because
Oh, yes, sir.
so what happened with the rise of tech and technology, those, let's say, left-leaning people who were college students who were lefties, at one time they were going to Silicon Valley. The game has changed now. They don't have to live on the west coast or the east coast to do their job. They can do their job right here in Wisconsin from their laptop, and they never leave.
Remote working. I got to address this comment here. Bill says for someone to say they are socially liberal but fiscally conservative, I asked, do you use a coupon when you purchase a hooker? I'm sorry, bro. I get the analogy. I truly do. I do get the analogy. Um, it's a hooker. You might be able to negotiate some stuff. That's all I'm saying. I get the analogy though. It's not like don't be Jerry Springer. Don't write the hooker a check. That's all I'm saying. Shout out real quick here, Rosert Burkhart. I hope I'm pronouncing your name. She's in the chat room. But
Rosetti.
all right,
I don't.
yeah, I don't want to mispronounce people's names, because I'm gonna see them, they're gonna shake my hand, they're
Burkhart
gonna
is
punch me in
good.
the jaw. Well, I just don't want to be the person who mispronounces somebody's name and then he punch me in the jaw and then like 5'2" and
Right.
then knock me out. Then I like got no stroke. But anyway, I said I was not gonna do a 33-hour show. I was gonna do 30 minutes. We're coming up on 2.5.
Okay.
Tracy, don't get too excited. I want you to close it out here.
Well, I'm running from Milwaukee
I
County
haven't
still.
even been drinking. That's the best part. I'm just tired. You're shoveling like a banshee up here. Like just ridiculous. But God, I got so many stories I wanted to go over tonight. But this has been a phenomenal conversation.
I hope so.
Caucus season is here.
Yep.
You hope so. And then, brother, you don't need to hope. You need to know. Caucus season is here. Milwaukee County has it tomorrow. Washera County has it Sunday. Many other counties. I will be in Wood County as their MC for their Lincoln Day dinner, March 25th. I got to give a shout out to the folks over there at Wood County Republican Party. These folks have been phenomenal. They have included me in a lot of their inner discussions and everything, and they have a great setup. They got Tom Tiffany, they got Derek Van Orden as speakers. I know this Sunday I'm going to have Senator Pat Teston, state senator, there, Assemblyman Scott Krug there. I believe Kevin Peterson may be there, and I know Marquette County usually sends representatives there. It's just I do thoroughly enjoy caucus season because I don't even care about the food. I just love hanging out with people, talking story. But here's the thing: tomorrow, big day for you. You've got you. You've got Natalie Zavin. You got Hilario De Leon. You've got Alex, and I don't know his last name. I think it's Zimmerman. Am I correct?
No, it's like, nah, it's not it.
Okay. Got Alex, and I can't remember the gentleman's last name, so I do apologize to him. You got 4 people, 4 conservatives that are running for the county chair for the Milwaukee County Republican Party. Now, Milwaukee County is huge. It's broken up into like 5 or 6 different sub-chapters below that. But the overall chair for Milwaukee County, Orlando, I want you to take 3-4 minutes. I want you to make your case. Break it down.
Well, I believe that I have the experience to lead the county. And I think a better way to say it, I think I have the experience to serve the county. Uh, Running statewide, I can tell you that the proposition of freedom is still alive in our state. And what we can do in Milwaukee County is to help to add to the overall vote count all over the state so that we can get a Republican governor, a Republican attorney general, and a conservative justice on the Supreme Court. We may not have a lot of wins locally here, but I can tell you if we win in Madison, we can win locally here from those people. What we have to do in Milwaukee County is to give a value proposition again to the people. A proposition that freedom is still worth fighting for, although our vote count may not show it here locally in our county. But if we can move our number from 30% to 35, we can win overall seats in our state. I don't claim to have all the answers, but what I can tell you is that we need to go out and find those guys in Cudahy, Franklin, Oak Creek, and talk to them about and listen to them why they're not voting conservatives. We got to find out why can't we get more people to identify with the ideas of freedom again. That liberty is still worth having, freedom is still worth defending. We need to understand that more so than ever before. And unfortunately, right now, we've lost the people. So we need a leader who can articulate this. We need a leader who has the energy, the foresight, and the vision to go out and find a new voter, to find those freedom fighters and inspire them to believe once again in this great county and our great state. That has to happen. And I believe I'm uniquely qualified for that, from being one of the co-founders of the Joseph Project, working for Ron Johnson for over 9 years now, being a member of the county party for almost 15, grassroots guy, talking to the guys in the back of the woods and talking to those guys. I'm quite comfortable because I'm a Southerner myself. I love hunting and fishing. It's time to go get them to bring them back to the table. I need your vote. I guess I'm gonna keep talking. Ed gave you more than that time.
No. We're still here. I just gotta get
Okay.
this.
Get yourself situated. That's okay.
There we go. There we go. Again, I'm still experimenting with a lot of this
This is up
software
close.
here that I got
Okay.
from. Well, I'm experimenting with this software from Restream.io. By the way, Gainesville, USA, represent.
What
By
is
the way, we like
Gainesville?
to
What
use.
is that, man?
You gotta make gains every day. I mean, your gains
Gainesville.
are.
All right. I'm about to get one.
Yeah,
I'm about to get one on the wall that says, "This is Freedomville right here."
that's what I'm talking about. See, I don't. I no longer represent Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I come from Gainesville,
I
USA.
love that, my friend.
We got to make them gains every day, whether it's, Monday being International Chest Day or Tuesday being International Leg Day. It doesn't matter. All of it is how can you be better than you were the day before? That's what Gainesville is all about. But that being said, I still love Milwaukee. Orlando, it's a tough thing because, of course, everybody knows I'm going to ride with you. That's just facts. I've been with you through the 2022 campaign cycle, all that other stuff. I think you got 4 conservatives that are out there. I think there's different philosophies, ideologies, everything else that goes along with that, and I definitely see more of your vision than I see with other folks like that. And, I'm still very thankful. We got a lot of folks here, still checking in on the stream. And it's amazing because I'm sure there's a lot of folks that have been on here a minute. Somebody, Bill said, I thought you were talking about Fort Dudley, Gainesville, Florida. Did you guys know there was a Milwaukee, North Carolina? There's a city of Milwaukee in North Carolina.
Okay.
Only reason I know that is because when I booked a hotel, it's like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, North Carolina. I was like, really? Did not know that. But that being said, though, I want to wish you all the luck in the world because, it's a tall task. It's a volunteer position. And, man, whoever's going to win this, I mean, it's really sink or swim. That's going to be the tough part right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not an on the job learning opportunity. We're at a critical
No.
stage. We're at a critical mask, and if you don't have a clear vision to go out and get those voters and go hunt for them, again, we can't use the field of dreams approach, build it and then will come. We're going to have to use the we got to go get it. We got to go out and find those voters and connect with them because we're at a critical stage now, and we cannot leave this to someone who's untested in wartime. I'm a tested commodity, tried and true on the campaign trail.
Yep.
I can look BLM in the face and not blink at all. And I have
Well, you've done that many a time, and I can attest to that. You have done that.
I have no problem talking to the boys in the back of the woods because I'm from the back of the woods. So we got to go
Yep.
get them boys and those families and those hunter and those sportsmen. We need someone who can articulate that vision and, most importantly, inspire and give people and break down the long vision on how important their party is in this overall fight for freedom. If you do not articulate that, then as a leader, we're going to continue to not have that turnout because people are tired of losing. You must explain how this works.
Correct. Matt, comment here. Why isn't the state hitting Milwaukee harder out to get votes? That's a great question.
I don't. I think
And
again. I think the state. I think no one. Again, I think tonight was some of the most revealing pieces of information that I think, and only through the Holy Spirit that God gave it to me that I expressed it to you all tonight. People have been beat down in Milwaukee County. If they don't see
Mhm.
the wins, what motivates them to keep trying? When you have a failing school system in the city of Milwaukee, when you see crime running rapid, we see nobody can kick out DA Chisholm. You see a school board that continue to get reelected. You see county supervisors with a left regime running the county. There is no positive reinforcements that will bring people out. So we have to understand the dynamic of that. And I think tonight was the first time anybody's ever articulated, and I could be wrong, Ed, but the there is there is a spirit of winning, but
Yeah.
there is also a culture of losing. And when you lose for so long, that base is lost, man. They feel the losses. They don't feel the wins. And then not only feel the win, they also must impact on the wins. They got to be part of that win. So we have to have someone
Yep.
who understands that. And I really believe no one, and you can talk to this now. I don't think no one has said what I said tonight.
No, I don't think anyone said this tonight. And I want to adjust this one comment here. They need to say the light at the end of the tunnel. The problem is, here's the difference between the pessimist and the optimist. The pessimist, the optimists start there first. They see the light at the end of the tunnel as, damn, finally through this thing. The pessimist sees the light at the end of the tunnel and is like, oh, great, it's an oncoming train. So because they don't want to get hit by the train, they stand against the wall. Kind of like that dude back in the day who just stood against the wall and wouldn't ask a girl to go dance with him. He got no play because he took no venture. Keep walking to the light at the end of the tunnel, because once you're past that tunnel, freedom awaits. Just a thought. Orlando, I want to thank you for joining here tonight. I wanted 30 minutes. I went 2 hours past it because, my God, why not?
Well, you
Absolutely amazing. And I got to thank everybody in the chat room because phenomenal.
it looks like you didn't have any
Absolutely.
rest at all.
Oh, and they didn't have anything crazy either here, too, right? It's like
No rust.
I always expect crazy, but it didn't get it.
You sounded good tonight. You rocked 2.5 hours. Great. You found the problems with the glitches. You did some playing around. You were doing some things testing. You had a good test run, my friend. Good test run today. Good work. Good work.
It's been beautiful, and we're gonna be putting out more content and everything. I'm gonna have you on, of course, and Stephanie, and just I want more guests on here because, like I said in the last episode, I want to bring these conversations forward. They don't necessarily have to be political, too. I want people that were downtrodden and have elevated. I want the farmer. I want the small business owner. I want the bar owner. I want everybody to have these conversations to find the things that are most important to us and where are the commonalities. Matt said something here, and I want to get to his comment before we close it out. I'm still nervous about April. I feel like the Lions about to play the Chiefs, and I agree. I'm very nervous.
Yeah,
Very nervous. But you know what, though? Go ahead, please.
you have a right to be nervous, and if we don't hit these messages right to the right people, and also fund the messages, we have a right to be nervous and a right to be apprehensive because we have to do it. We have to be able to talk to those populations of people and offer them again the value, a proposition of freedom again that has been beat upon and taken down. Milwaukee County has to do better. And we have to be able to articulate a message that connects to them on why they need to go out and vote for the Supreme Court. We have to, because all the things we have, all the battles we fought for, from castle doctrine to to concealed carry to school choice to all the reforms we had to to Act 10. All those things will be wiped away if we don't do it. So that has to be the motivation, the motivating factor, because that affects us all.
Let me ask you this one final question, and then I'll cut you loose here, brother. Win or lose, and I'm resigned to this here come Sunday. I'm going to go to my county party, and I'm going to run for the chair. And how do I put it? In my perspective, at this moment in time, and I reserve the right to change my opinion at any moment. But right now, I'm looking at a hostile takeover, a one-man hostile takeover. And you're either with me or you're going to probably go against me. And if that's the case, stand by. But if I lose, I also know the fact that I've done more by myself than multiple counties have done together. In the event that you should lose, what will you do?
Well, I'm still on the board of Milwaukee County. I'm the currently chair
Correct.
of Milwaukee North. I will do my best to impact that board, but I will tell you that I will be definitely disappointed um,
Mm-hmm.
if the people of the county doesn't vote for me over some of the other. I think the others are well intended, but I think part of the issue is I only get 3 minutes, and I don't know how well I can articulate a message in 3 minutes that really connects with people, because this cannot be a beauty contest. This cannot be
No.
can't be a popularity contest. This has to be one that really has deep thought. But I'll be on the county board, and I will, I'll do my thing. I'm gonna move my branch to do things here. I'll partner with other chairs over in Oak Creek. We'll do. Jonathan Wickman is a great. He just got elected. Him and I have talked about some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've the TOSA chair, the West Allis chair. So I may not win the chairmanship, but I hope I do. Um, but
Correct.
I definitely already, I think on some levels, I've won the board already.
Mm. So what you're telling me here is there is no end in sight.
There's no end in sight for me. For freedom, it was
Yes, sir.
limitless.
It's funny. I had somebody ask me not too long ago. It's like, well, why do you do what you do? I'm like, well, I don't get paid for this or anything like that. It is what it is. Oh, I do it because I have kids. You have a young boy, little more than a year. My youngest is 11, and we do what we do for them. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for what you brought forth. And of course, most importantly, I want to thank you for your friendship and everything else. You know, on that note, I want to cut you loose here because, yeah, Matt said it right here. Matt said it right here. I fight this fight for my 9-year-old. Let's circle back real quick. I really want to close this out before you get 3 hours and Tracy gets too happy. But some people talk about structure. Some people talk about let's change things, in 1 year. But in reality, when it comes to Southeast Wisconsin, we're planting seeds for a tree we'll never be able to sit under the shade of. And if that's the case, if hard times need to come upon us so that our children can, well, live a better life, let it be so. So on that note, Orlando Owens, thank you so much for joining here tonight. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank all you guys as well. All right, my brother, you have a good night. We'll talk to you. I'll give you a call tomorrow, and we'll chop it up, man. All right. Oh, this is an awesome comment right here. This is absolutely, come on, populate. I fight for my 7 kiddos. They deserve us to fight. Absolutely amazing. I want a better Wisconsin for our kids. Later, all. And that was Matt right there. I want to thank you guys all for joining here tonight. You guys have been phenomenal in the chat room. You guys have had some phenomenal questions, outstanding. And of course, our guest here, Orlando Owens. So, on that note, I want you guys to know that we're going to have more content coming out. This episode tonight was supposed to only be 30 minutes. We were supposed to only test what we had going on, but clearly we went much longer. That's okay. Great conversation, everything. Again, thank you guys for joining tonight. Good night. God bless you. God bless the USA. Have a phenomenal weekend. And come Monday, please be careful. I know here in central Wisconsin, we got a lot of issues with rain, snow, all that other stuff. If you guys see somebody in need, make sure you take care of them too. So take care. I'll see you soon. I'm out.